Our main character strolls through the hallways, and no one can ignore his vibe. They keep wondering if it's really him. That's facts. It's the famous Grandmaster, Kang Suho, the school's prodigy. Everyone wants to suck up to the bro, and the compliments don't stop. Suho loves all of it, even Juri, the school's queen bee and a support player. Can't help herself, and feels like she's down bad for him. She wants to play a few intense matches with him and gets closer, but he's just giving off that hands-in-pockets cool vibe. He tries to get away, saying he has no time to play with her. But she gets mad, yelling that he should carry her because she's cute, funny, and even reached Grandmaster rank. But he just smirks and says if she's that good, why does she want to get all cozy with him? Does she want to be carried by a real pro? He leaves while the simps say they'd love to be with her for real. A bit later, he's bored in class, when he suddenly gets up and makes a lame excuse to go to the nurse's office. But on the way, he changes course. He ends up practicing for the upcoming tournament on a school computer. Suddenly, someone else is doing the same. A black-haired kid is also playing there. He calls the other guy over and they agree not to snitch on each other. But when the blonde guy sees the other kid playing the same game, he gets an idea. Even though he's using a janky mouse, he challenges the new kid to a solo match, a one-on-one. Seeing the kid's character is a total noob, he's sure it'll be easy and the solo match begins. Soon enough, the score is 10-0 and the kid is popping off. But it's the blonde guy who lost 10 times. He got absolutely bodied and doesn't understand why. The kid is unranked and using starter gear, so this should be impossible. He's a Grandmaster, so this is definitely not some random player. He looks up the kid's username and discovers the truth. This random kid is actually in the legend rank, the highest rank possible. The worst part is he rarely plays the game, and even plays on the NA server with insane ping. And of course, he's our main character. Unfortunately for the new kid, the blonde guy is now obsessed with him. Do-yoon tries to go home secretly, but Blondie is already there waiting for him. After a lot of begging, and with no other choice, since this guy really wants to play, they're now at a PC bang. And Do-yoon, who's never played on such a good rig, when suddenly, a boy-crazy girl shows up, and looking at our main character's face, it's obvious he wants a piece of that. But she's more interested in the blonde guy, since she thinks he's the better player right now. She even disses him, seeing a level 22 player on the team. Blondie tells her to just trust, and they all get into the game. Juri is a master rank support. Kang is a Grandmaster rank DPS, while our Ligma is just a random newbie player. The Temu version of League of Legends begins. Our boy just stands there, admiring the high-end graphics and taking it all in. It's a quick match, so everyone rushes in. Kang rushes forward, charges up a punch and gets first blood. A few enemies target Juri to kill the support, and this is our boy's time to shine. But he plays like a complete bot. That's because all the hotkeys on his mouse and keyboard are different. Now that he's realized, he decides to focus up. But we don't see the result, because the scene cuts to the next day in class. As Do-yoon is talking with Kang about the two friends he used to play with, a girl is surprised to see him. The girl even hiccups just from seeing our boy. I bet 100 grand that she's the one who used to secretly play with our bro. He gets home when Kang invites him to a tournament, so he can earn some cash for a better computer. And in the comments section, everyone below Master Tier is feeling pretty down. That's why the event organizers start to realize this plan is totally solid, because the best players in the world are signing up. It could become a huge hit. They're talking about a competition bringing together big names and respected players. But two of those players are already in trouble, because soon enough, Do-yoon, who's teaming up with Suho, has unfortunately dropped to platinum rank. This competition is hosted by the streamer Swibak Boss 9000. The goal is to get the main character to participate. Although it's still an official tournament, it's the first of its kind in Korea. As for Do-yoon, he's not too confident. But the prize is 1,000 for the winning team. Split, that's about 200 each, enough for Do-yoon to upgrade his mouse and keyboard. That's the prize for the winners, which means they have to win. For Suho, the fact that the MC thinks they won't win is actually insulting. But he confidently says that the other day, the computer was holding the kid back and that they'll win. So with this vote of confidence, Do-yoon is fired up, ready to give it his all. To register, they need a minimum rank of Master, so it was decided that the kid should play some ranked matches. And maybe because everyone's cheering him on, Do-yoon pictures that shiny prize in his hands. Later, while at Suho's place scrolling on his phone, he sees a message from Yuri, asking him to the movies on Saturday and maybe play some games afterward. But the boy just tosses his phone aside, fed up with her constant invitations. However, he thinks it'd be great if Do-yoon has reached that rank already. Suho is super curious about our MC's win count, and believes he's at least hit master rank. But for now, the platinum icon is shoved in the blonde guy's face, and he feels super embarrassed. And while he's shaking afraid of getting yelled at, Do-yoon hears Suho scream. Later that day, our MC looks pretty bummed out. Suho tries to cheer him up, saying that's just how ranked matches are, and they can still rank up by the weekend. He says it's weird, but Do-yoon should be able to rank up with absolutely no effort. But then he finds out the kid had 5 wins and 5 losses. At that point, Suho can't even look Do-yoon in the eye anymore. But instead of being down about losing his confidence, Do-yoon decides to grind the game every day until he succeeds, hoping not to disappoint Suho. So a long day of epic gaming passes, and the next day, the two friends get an even bigger surprise. Because after playing a bunch of matches, our MC has dropped to gold rank. While Jury is laughing her ass off, Suho tries to figure out what went wrong again. The fact is, they only have 4 days left until the deadline, and if they keep this up, they won't even get in, let alone win. So our MC feels as bad as he possibly can, but Suho doesn't look much better. Generally, Korean players are better than most, which raises the skill level of the server. But in FPS games, it's a whole different story, as Western players really stand out. That's why Suho can't figure out why our MC is struggling against less experienced players, and he can't help but think the kid might be a hacker. But he pushes that thought away, not wanting to be judgmental, just trying to understand how this could have happened. Suddenly our MC apologizes. Suho had said he was a great player and they'd team up, but now he's not sure he can do it. He was confident about the server thing too, but says that daydreaming is his only real talent. Him putting himself down doesn't sit right with the blonde guy. So he replies that he already knows how good this hero is, because they played together. That's why he called Do-yoon to that PC bang after school, because he needed to see for himself what was going on. When they get there, our MC is ready to jump into some games, but Suho quickly tells him to chill, saying he's not used to the machine and needs to test it first. With a warm-up, he spends 10 minutes aiming at targets, moving and adapting quickly. Suho figures he just needs a bit of practice. Finally, after a while, Do-yoon says he's ready both skill-wise and gear-wise. Then the two of them, all hyped up, go to test the kid's skills in a new match. Suho watches from afar, knowing that Do-yoon doesn't belong in the gold rank, and being there is the only way to find out the problem. Anyway, just like before, despite his best efforts, our main character faces another bitter defeat. But Suho is even more worried than he is. But in reality, the kid is terrified, as he finally understands why he keeps losing. Even with a better internet and a great PC, he still needs to adjust a few things. And the first one is the in-game voice chat channel. Surprisingly, Do-yoon doesn't even know what that is. Then the blonde guy realizes it would be better to show him a replay of the match, which he also has to explain, since the kid didn't know the game, records his matches. Finally, as they start the replay, it's clear he greeted the whole team when the match began, but that was his first mistake. This is ridiculous to the kid since he just said hi. Do-yoon asks if he's not supposed to be polite, but he's misunderstood, because the point isn't to eliminate griefers. The game's main goal is to complete the objective and win. People play in all sorts of ways. Some are totally focused on winning like them, and others couldn't care less about the score. There are also those who just want to explore the scenery, like they're on a picnic, and those who love buying items to decorate their characters. But the worst group our MC should stay away from are the trolls, who just love messing with others. So, he's totally losing because of the trolls throwing his games. To analyze it better, Suho pulls the MC over to take a closer look at the replay. First up is the dinner thief, the one who disappears to grab snacks as soon as the match starts. Next to him is the pessimistic thief, who's convinced he's going to lose before the match even begins, and the music thief blasts loud music through his mic. One guy is rambling about food, another is whining, and the last one keeps blasting music, like he's at a concert. And the last guy, he only moves once a minute, to avoid getting kicked. So when our MC tries to chat, just 20 seconds before the match, he sees everyone picking their character classes, focusing on damage. Thinking he could be useful, he decides to pick support, but that was a huge mistake. Do-yoon says his teammates will fail, without heals, but Suho is like, nah. They're screwed either way. The pessimistic guy has already charged at the enemy, getting himself killed, and is now flaming the support player. Meanwhile, the snack thief is munching away, and the others are just chilling in a corner. At the same time, the music thief is trying to sync his dance emotes to the beat to win. The team needs tanks, supports, and damage dealers. A balance. That's what gets players the win. But they have to give it their all. If you look at high and low ELO players, the gap is huge. So, his friend says the MC will get nowhere if he's not proactive. That's why Do-yoon asks what he would do if they start cussing in voice chat. But Suho is all about ignoring them, which leaves Do-yoon a bit confused. To clarify, the blonde guy points out that the MC still shines, even when playing support. Back on the NA server, he couldn't chat with anyone because of the language barrier. So Suho asks what he did back then, sparking a few memories. The truth is, the main character used the few English words he knew, and that's the spirit he needs. Ignore everything not related to the game. Just do what needs to be done, without stressing about what others think. So, the other guy asks if he wants to win, and our MC knows deep down that he does. If he has a chance to fight, he can totally win. If he plays offensively, he'll have a chance to turn the tables. But he now realizes that, after all those days grinding in that ELO, he's the best one there. Do-yoon's not trying to gas himself up, it's just a fact. Upon logging in, he gets the same 4 players from the last match. The pessimistic guy wastes no time, and immediately starts whining about getting that same support player again. This time he's playing the DPS role, which makes him even more annoyed. Instead of listening to the nonsense, our boy tells his teammate to shut up and switches his class. Even the dinner troll agrees to pick something more suitable. In the end, they don't even have to lift a finger, because Do-yoon wipes out the enemy, securing the win for the trolls he carried. The next day at school, Do-yoon arrives with the great news that he's reached Master Rank. Suho grins with excitement, saying he's incredible. Finally, our main character is excited too, and now nothing can stop the team from signing up for the tournament. Meanwhile, a super busy girl is cleaning and complaining about being treated like a maid. After all, she's also in the competition, and can't possibly practice in this mess. With 53,000 people watching live, Swibak chimes in and says that registration for the site, Bon Cup, is over. He was just joking around when he announced the competition, but didn't expect such a massive response. So he just asks everyone not to be shocked, because even pro players have signed up. The manager of these players just formed a new team, and already has 3 members. So the crowd is buzzing, betting this will be pure entertainment. However, Swibak says he's all for fair play, so he'll be picking the teams randomly to balance things out. He spins a wheel based on ranks. In the end, 2 pro players are chosen to play alongside some other big names. Many are calling it a sham, saying there aren't many pro players in the scene, and the names are being kept secret until match day. Plus, if anyone asks why he isn't playing, Swibak makes it clear that, as a hard-stuck silver player, he's just here to commentate. The next day, news about Swibak and the LAN tournament spreads through the school faster than a TikTok trend. Do-yoon thinks it'll be a piece of cake to win if Suho joins the competition. Juri, who's chilling not far away, believes it would be a legendary combo. She strolls over and asks why they're always attached at the hip. But when Suho ignores her to keep talking to the main character, Yuri gives Do-yoon a death stare. In the end, she gives up wasting her time there, which the blonde guy completely fails to notice. People are still wondering why Swibak is the commentator when he hasn't even hit gold rank. Back in the classroom after everyone has left, Do-yoon says he's sorry. He just wanted to disappear and didn't expect to be under all this pressure. Do-yoon feels like all eyes are on him, and Suho says it's because they know he's competing. But the kid remembers that nobody knows they're a duo yet. Even Suho admits he felt nervous when he heard there would be legends participating. But they totally deserve their spot, thanks to their ranks. And even though our MC thought about messing up during the competition, his blonde friend disagrees, not to mention the heavy hitters they've got. Because besides Do-yoon, they can also count on Jae-nam on their team. Answering our MC's question, he says he's known as Mems, a legend in many pro leagues. Do-yoon feels a wave of relief, having such a seasoned player on board, and that's why Suho tells him to relax. With 2 pro players in the match, it probably means Minho-do will be on the other team. This guy was in one of the pro leagues with Jae-nam, and was the top player there. So good that Do-yoon might not even make a dent in the match. But Suho can't just drop that bomb on him. After all, he's not confident enough, and is naturally an introvert. Even though they've been at the same school for months, Suho has only started talking to Do-yoon recently, especially because he always seems to keep to himself. Suho still can't figure out why he's so introverted, but it's that lack of confidence that holds him back. A bit later, Juri recognizes someone while gaming, and thank God, it's Suho. Lucky for her, the only empty seats in the PC bang are next to her, so the blonde guy has no choice but to sit down. Of course, Juri is thrilled to have some alone time with him. But just as she's about to make her move, Do-yoon, who was in the bathroom, shows up. Once again, Juri's bloodthirsty gaze falls on the poor guy. Then Juri yells that Suho is an idiot for always ignoring her, but playing with Do-yoon every day. Then Suho thinks of a way to explain without spilling the secret about the tournament. But not caring if he sounds rude, he blurts out that Juri should find someone else to play with because she's too annoying. The girl can't even think about playing with someone else because she has her reasons. But she doesn't stoop to begging and leaves cursing his upcoming matches. In the end, Suho still doesn't get why she's acting so weird, but he brushes it off so they can get started soon and try a new setup. Until a scream breaks the mood and they realize it's the girl's voice. Suho rushes over and finds her sprawled on the hallway floor. He asks if she slipped, but she says she actually bumped into a guy on her way out. She apologized, but the guy still yanked her arm and Juri fell. Suho can't believe it and asks why that happened. But the answer he gets is a can of soda splashed in his face. Still soaking wet, the guy says. Yuri deserved it for spilling his drink. After processing the ridiculous words he just heard, Suho yells at the punk to grow up. Suho tries to explain that things like this shouldn't happen. But Do-yoon also shows up to confront this weirdo. And for some reason, the troublemaker's face lights up with a smile. After all, it's been a while since he's seen that loser so obviously scared. Do-yoon greets Xander super rudely. Xander asks if the kid is still playing his childish games because he thinks Do-yoon is still destined to lose, so he sees no point in it. And just by the way they look at each other, it's clear there's some past drama. As they talk, Suho wonders if they know each other. Xander asks if the main character is with the others, judging by the uniforms, then decides he isn't, and declares that Trash doesn't have friends. But Suho still can't figure out who this guy thinks he is. But he figures arguing with a savage like that is a waste of breath. I mean, not only is Yuri shocked, but Do-yoon also looks extremely uncomfortable. Finally, Suho decides to dip before things get messy. It's smarter, but suddenly the troublemaker gets hit in the head, which neither Suho nor the MC expected. As soon as that soda can hits the ground, it's clear Yuri was the one who threw it. Then completely stunned, Xander just asks if the girl has lost her mind. Yuri holds her, ground telling the punk to piss off, and at the same time defending Do-yoon by saying he's her friend. Plus she goes for the jugular, cursing him out, and saying he's not the only one who knows how to trash talk. So the two just stare each other down for a moment, while everyone holds their breath. But then suddenly, the tension is cut by Xander's phone ringing. Against his will, he has to pick up and back off a bit to see what's up. To make things worse, it seems like he's taking a call, so Yuri is super annoyed that he's just going to dip without apologizing. But Xander just flashes that classic offensive hand gesture, making Yuri even more furious, while Suho breathes a sigh of relief. He still doesn't get why things escalated like that, but there's no more time to waste. But Do-yoon gets back to the competition, pulling the blonde guy back into focus. Later that day, Yuri is really grateful for being walked home. Suho worries about how her parents will react to her dirty uniform, but Yuri says she'll just make up some excuse. Anyway, she's really happy he came to help and she says goodbye with a bright smile. This makes Suho start to see the girl in a different light. After a few more minutes of saying goodbye to Yuri, the two boys meet up to head home together. But on the way, the blonde guy can't help but ask who that guy from earlier was. Then Do-yoon explains it was a friend he used to play with for fun. And this finally makes it click for Suho, helping him understand. Why does the main character have so many self-esteem issues? Perhaps because it's still a difficult thing to face. The two of them said their goodbyes quite abruptly. And that night when he got home, Do-yoon sat alone in the corner of his room to sort out his thoughts. The first memory he had with Xander was when the bully kicked his game console in half. But in his mind, it made sense, because a loser like Do-yoon wouldn't need something like that. The next morning, the new day began with Yuri's radiant smile. Suho asked how things were, and the girl said she didn't get into any trouble with her parents. Anyway, since it was their turn for cleaning duty, Yuri had to go out and take out the trash, and Suho seemed pretty excited. But just as he was about to talk to Do-yoon, he realized his friend had disappeared. Right behind Yuri, the main character called her name. First, he offered to help, but before that, he also apologized for what happened yesterday. Of course, Yuri brushed it off, saying that guy wasn't worth her time. But the main character could feel how much her body was trembling at that moment. While shielding her, Do-yoon felt the girl's ice-cold hands, and they wouldn't stop shaking. After that, Yuri dropped the act, her eyes welling up with tears. Next, the girl admitted this was the first time something like this had happened. This made Do-yoon take the situation more seriously. A while later, Do-yoon put on his headset and sat down in front of the screen to finally get back to the game. Suho was online and asked how the new headset was. Then the boy thanked him for lending it to him, although it meant nothing to the blonde guy. Do-yoon still found it weird to talk instead of type, but Suho said it was fine, and recalled when his older brother showed up, thinking he was being called. Anyway, since they needed 5 players for a match, others started joining. Exactly 3 players connected. The first was named Spellboy, a Grandmaster rank. The second was Kanai, a Legendary rank. And the last and most famous, Yeonam, also Legendary rank. In fact, everyone greeted each other with great enthusiasm. However, remembering Xander would also be playing, since he was at the PC bang, Suho realized he might have to face him. Putting that aside, the blonde guy's eyes lit up more than ever, because next to him was his idol, Yeonam. Suho revealed he's a huge fan of this guy. And guess what? Yeonam had also heard of him, thanks to a few of his streams, so there was a kid in the group. But upon hearing his voice, Suho was completely surprised because it was so deep. Finally, the last person said hello. Suho said a simple hi, perhaps thinking it might be Xander. But after checking and seeing he was very relaxed, The blonde guy pushed that thought aside, maintaining a friendly attitude. Now that things were clearer, Suho felt much more at ease. And just then someone appeared, grabbing everyone's attention. It was none other than the streamer who started the whole competition. Walking in, Spellboy looked at him as if he'd just seen a legend, and the streamer went around greeting everyone. While showing some love to Spellboy, he shook hands with the main character and thanked them again, saying the event wouldn't be this epic without their help. Pausing for a moment, he called Spellboy over for a photo, and you could see he was completely starstruck, lost in his emotions. Suho checked in on the main character, asking if he was nervous, telling him to chill. Yeonam chimed in, asking if they knew each other, and the blonde guy said they were classmates. The pro player thought that was crazy, because he also came with a friend. Back to the streamer, he mentioned that he'd set up a practice arena for them and formed a team with 5 other opponents. And guess what? Yeonam's friend was one of those 5 people. Suho couldn't even believe it was real, because that friend was Gigi. Although they said 3 pro players had signed up, Suho had no idea she was also here. Meanwhile, the friends were just chatting happily, very relaxed. But some mumbling about only Yeonam competing came through the mic, raising curiosity since they were in the same room. Regardless, Suho was feeling pumped about one day becoming a pro player and joining a famous team with them. So while he thought he was just a spectator, the streamer told them to enjoy it and start the match. On the main character's team, Spellboy started by asking who would take which position. Yeonam chimed in, asking about everyone's strengths. Without hesitation, Suho and the short kid chose tank to support everyone, while Kanai chose DPS and Doyeon was a bit hesitant. Yeonam found it strange that the lowest-ranked player was taking so long. So he checked the main character's ranked match history and was completely shocked. A few seconds later, Yeonam turned and asked if he had chosen tank or DPS. Spellboy thought it was crazy that he even got a choice, but Yeonam explained it was just a warm-up match. Feeling a little more confident, the main character finally said he'd play DPS, and without any fuss, Yeonam chose support to help the whole team. Since the opponents were very strong, Yeonam said not to waste time and asked who was the main tank. Spellboy excitedly jumped in, saying he could take on that role, especially when he revealed his true form. Apparently, he's a monster. The entire enemy team knew they had to take him down first. At first, the kid looked like he was ready to devour his opponents. But naturally, as the enemy team started focusing on him, his health and confidence began to drop. At the most critical moment, he was healed by Yeonam, who was using his support magic from a distance. The boy shouted for Spellboy not to worry about healing, because he had his back. After that, the monster tank broke out with even more power than before. Quickly, the DPS players lined up behind Spellboy to deal damage. But it was Doyeon who took advantage of the front line and unleashed a crazy punch, making an enemy disappear with that terrifying power. The high-level players were speechless, trying to process what just happened. Spellboy thanked Yeonam for the heal, but warned that they could handle the rest. Unlike when he was being attacked, Spellboy looked ready to take them all down. Then Gigi started to break a sweat, worried about the current situation. She had experience in ranked matches against Kanai, who was rumored to be joining a team, but she wasn't worried about Spellboy. It was the guy in the back, who was super strong despite being just a mere master. Suddenly, near the allied team's crystal, an enemy snuck up behind Yeonam. Unfortunately, the pro player didn't react fast enough, but someone had his back, hitting that intruder multiple times, and that person was Doyeon. The whole team immediately jumped back into action. But even as Suho was cheering for the main character, Yeonam started glancing at him. Kanai felt the same way, because after that performance, it was hard not to think that he was smurfing on his rank. By the end of the match, everyone played great, but Doyeon completely stole the show with 17 kills and 0 deaths. Spellboy was beaming with pride, while Kanai just sat there silently lost in thought. Suho hyped up the hero, saying he practically carried the entire match by himself. But Doyeon wanted to share the glory with the whole team, and that was a spirit everyone could get behind. After changing the subject, Spellboy asked if the pro player still wanted to switch roles. But after a moment, the guy decided to keep things as they were, which really left everyone scratching their heads. Spellboy chimed in, saying that he's a legend, and couldn't let some random master take the damage-dealing spot. It would make way more sense for the pro to focus on offense, right? That's where the action is. But Yeonam quickly said that the main character handled that pressure like a champ. After the match ended, the streamer sent his praise to everyone, saying they had completely exceeded his expectations. He went on to praise both the DPS players and Doyeon, who had played incredibly well. As a silver-ranked player himself, he knew he could never hang in a match like this. However, he paused the celebration to ask one of them something. Getting straight to the point with Psychopomp, the streamer said he knew he probably wasn't a master rank. Everyone's jaw dropped at this, so Suho jumped in to explain. But Sweet Park cut him off. He wanted to hear it from the main character himself. This was a nightmare for an introvert, so he was ready to help. But before anything could happen, Doyen revealed the truth. He said the account was in his name, and it wasn't a Smurf account. Furthermore, he wasn't using any cheats or intentionally throwing games to gain an advantage. So Sweet Park quickly asked for the details. Finally, the main character told the whole story about starting on the North American server and just recently transferring to the Korean server. Then, the streamer asked what his rank was on the other server. And without hesitation, the boy said he was legendary rank. The high-level players didn't seem fazed, but Spellboy was speechless. Once again, silence filled the room until the streamer seemed to have put two and two together. Suho couldn't help but think of a scenario where Doyen wouldn't get kicked out of the tournament. But even with the penalty looming, Sweet Park thought this story was super cool. But in his eyes, this would blow up on social media, and that meant millions of views. That's what really matters in this capitalist world. Suho asked if there would be a problem, but Sweet Park reassured him there wouldn't be because Doyen didn't do it on purpose. By the way, he also mentioned that they were lucky because the master rank player on Team 2 had dropped out. So, they just needed to find one more legend to balance the rosters. Everyone agreed. But once again, Gigi's voice came through Yeonam's mic, begging to be chosen. Then the streamer clarified that he would pick someone randomly from the standby list. After all this chaos, Suho looked at the main character and let out a long sigh, then gave him a relieved hug. But before they could talk, Sweet Park called the team over to give them a reward. It was a skin. Doyen was stunned, because his inventory was completely empty. Then Sweet Park thanked them for participating in his player event. He was extremely excited, because this tournament was getting bigger and bigger, and that's why he wanted to create an official uniform for each team. Suddenly the main character's clothes started glowing, a brilliant gold. And without him doing anything, the skin was equipped on his character. Of course, since it was a team uniform, the same thing happened to the others. Spellboy thought the skin was sick, and Suho joked that the main character could finally ditch that plain white outfit. Even Yeonam felt the same way. But in his room, he was analyzing Doyen, who had reached a professional level in just 40 matches. With such perfect stats, he asked his younger brother Minho if he found that interesting. It seems that in the replay of the last match, from the start to just 9 or 10 milliseconds in, Doyen had already reacted, and in just 20 milliseconds, the kid had locked onto his target. This reaction time was something Yeonam definitely thought was too good to be true for anyone. Moreover, he was a total legend on the NA server, while grinding in Korea. Anyway, the guy stood up and called both his brother and Gigi, who was feeling bummed out, to go get something to eat. She really wanted to join the tournament, to show off her skills, but sadly that wasn't possible now. Still, Minho kept daydreaming about this new potential game changer, named Psychopomp. At lightning speed, both the main character and Spellboy dashed off, until the little guy spotted something that could be an enemy. Noticing it was aiming for the main character, he tried to shout out the position. But in the panic, the worst had already happened. So, Yeonam paused the game and offered some advice, but they'd been grinding non-stop, so he thought it was time for them to bond a little. After all, as a solid team, they should get along. This sounded like the words of a wise sage to Suho. First, they needed to pick some call signs, and for him it would be J, short for Yeonam. On the other hand, Spellboy decided to go with Mr. Boy, and Kanai just used Kanai. As for him, Suho chose the call sign Aegis, and when asked, he explained that it's pronounced in English. Aegis is supposedly the name of Zeus's shield, and the way you pronounce it, I guess, is with emphasis on the G. But Doyen thought that was epic, and Mr. Boy finally learned the correct pronunciation. Anyway, Suho mentioned that his name also has a really cool meaning. It means guardian in Korean. But he plays DPS, getting back on topic. He was cool with the nickname Aegis. Now the biggest problem was Psychopomp. For some reason, he was shaking. Inevitably, Doyen had to confess that he didn't pick his name, thinking he'd have to explain it. However, Yeonam was just curious about the meaning behind the call sign. So the main character answered a bit shyly that it means Reaper, originating from Greek mythology. Spellboy burst out laughing, because he thought it meant psycho. But seeing the kid's face, he asked why he chose that name. Doyen was about to say he had no particular reason, but seeing Suho's eager, curious gaze, he caved and revealed that since his name means to guide people, he used the symbol of the Reaper to create the phrase, guiding people to their deaths. Anyway, Suho knew some people actually try to find a cool name in the dictionary for their call signs. Many people struggle to think of good names and search for words in other languages. That sounds sick. So keeping all this in mind, Yeonam simplified the story behind that call sign. But the next morning when Suho called him Reaper, Doyen looked extremely uncomfortable, probably feeling a bit cringy. Suho decided to stick with the original nickname, but their conversation was interrupted by the sound of a notification. It seemed all the online forums were buzzing, like crazy, since a fierce rivalry was announced. And of course this reaction was something Suho had completely expected. On Team 2, among the players to be mentioned later, was Minho, with the call sign Domino. Suho felt a bit discouraged, but tried to stay optimistic, because he had the main character on his team. This also made him fall silent, thinking he might be putting pressure on his friend. But for some reason, Doyeon now seemed fearless, so the blonde guy was happy to see him showing confidence. Anyway, Suho kept thinking that Xander would show up, and in a random coincidence, the main character started talking about the same person, saying it was the call sign Nephilis on the list. Ultimately, Doyeon had known that Weirdo would be participating from the start. However, despite appearances, he admitted he wasn't very confident. After all, he'd never beaten Xander in a one-on-one match. But even without any wins, because of the emotional baggage he carried, Doyeon affirmed that this time would be different. So it was clear the blonde guy didn't doubt the kid's determination. Ultimately, he knew he'd have to face a tough opponent. But Psionic Vagabond wasn't a solo game. It was all about teamwork. Back at the school gate, everyone spotted Suho and flocked to ask if he was really in the tournament. So while surrounded by the crowd, he confirmed he was definitely in. And of course, that announcement got the fans even more hyped. Later, one guy asked his friend if he wanted to hang out on Saturday, but he turned him down because of the tournament. For his part, the friend didn't play this game but kept urging the other one to try it. And since everyone was buzzing about it, feeling a bit left out, he decided to go play at his friend's house. People getting together with friends for this event was totally normal. But one girl said she needed to watch with her older sister. Her friend asked if it was the gamer sister, and she nodded. That friend then asked if the girl had played, but she wasn't interested, because what she really loved was just watching. Anyway, when she realized she was alone, the image of the main character popped into her mind again, freaking out about the upcoming match. Back to the game. Spellboy asked the main character if he was okay, since he didn't look very calm. Anyway, Jay asked if everyone was ready. And unlike the others, Doyeon nearly passed out, as team captain Yeonam checked to see if Reaper was okay. But having heard a lot about the competition at school, Suho explained that he was just nervous. Then putting a hand on the main character's shoulder, he told Doyeon to shake off the nerves and give it his all. And those social skills totally impressed the blonde guy. Anyway, the streamer sent a message, saying he would start streaming at 300 p.m. So everyone nodded to show they got the message. Finally, 300 p.m. struck on clocks all across Korea. Ben introduced himself as Squid Game 9000. The streamer kicked off the moment everyone had been waiting for. This was the main event of the first PC Bond Cup he'd ever hosted. So all over the country, people were locked and loaded, even at that girl's house, the gamer sister. In contrast, Gigi didn't seem too thrilled, but back to the stream, Sweet Park soon announced he had another commentator joining him. He then welcomed the legendary game commentator, Ian Pokum. This guy was a famous streamer, turned professional caster, so he always wanted to create an amazing experience. More and more people were blown away by the broadcast's level of professionalism. But looking at the lineup, what shocked everyone was that there were 3 legends on each side. Then for his part, Ian was curious why it was a tournament, when they only had one match. Then annoyed by the question, Sweet Park snapped back that he would know if he followed his streams. Every time he tried to play, he would get destroyed because he was so bad. That's exactly why he got so mad, that he offered a $1,000 bounty to anyone who could play well. Then someone made a poster, and spread it across various online forums, getting everyone hyped. Ultimately, despite having no plans, this was the story that led to the present moment. So putting the past aside, the two decided to focus on the match, as it was first time for an interview with the captain of Team 1. The girl's sister from school freaked out when she saw him. But perhaps it was just because his friendly smile had a different kind of vibe yesterday. Ian gave credit to Yeonam for drawing in a huge audience. And when faced with Minho, the streamer asked for a statement. Having to give an opinion so suddenly made the guy think. But unlike what you'd expect from a nice guy, Yeonam said that Team 2 would lose, shocking the commentators. However, the person most affected by this was Doyeon. He crumpled, feeling more pressure than ever. In Psionic Vagabond, a game set in a distant and dystopian future, in that game, a girl runs for her life until a bullet grazes her face. Right behind her is the one who fired that shot, and a samurai ready to finish her off. But inevitably, from above, the sword-wielding girl prepares for a fatal blow, and the blade comes rushing down, until suddenly, for some reason, her eyes start glowing strangely, causing her to vanish right before her enemies. The samurai's sword plunges into the ground, creating a deep crater, and as the dust settles, they wonder where she went. But no matter how they search, it's hard to find her on the streets, because the girl had teleported to the top of a building. In this game world, humans possess something called ESP, which basically gives them powers like telekinesis or teleportation. With all sorts of resources available, gangs of players use these supernatural powers and the power of special crystals to mark their territory and expand their turf. On the other hand, there are also normal fighters who fight against the gangs with basic weapons. Psionic Vagabond basically shows an endless war between humans and superhumans fighting over territory. From Ian's perspective, it fosters competition between groups. The 6 superhumans display a wide array of skills, making the game much more interesting. However, their attack power is weaker. Conversely, normals have strong attacks, but they lack mobility, which makes things more difficult. So that's why most tanks and supports are superhumans. Changing the subject. Youngpo thinks many of the pro players in this competition will choose the normal faction. But instead of spilling the beans, Sweeback connects with the team captain, a man with a huge grin. All the forums are treating Nam like a total rock star, and even Sweeback is curious about his vibe. So the guy reveals that he's been watching the streams and thought it'd be fun to join. Changing the subject, Youngpo asks how the lineup is looking. Nam says they've got some good players and promises everyone will have a great time. A great time. That's why the streamer is curious who'll be the MVP in the next match. And unexpectedly, he shouts out on national television for everyone to pay attention to Cyclopalm. Judging by the main character's face, it's clear he's feeling the pressure. And when Sweeback asks about Minho, the captain pauses for a moment. But he gives a similar answer as before, declaring he's going to absolutely demolish his team with all the energy of a leader. The crowd goes wild, and the other girl's sister takes a sip of water. Anyway, Sweeback wishes Nam good luck, and then calls on Team 2 for their introduction. But for some reason, he can't connect to the stream. A little embarrassed, Sweeback asks the young man if he's feeling nervous. But it's pretty obvious when Minho just says he'll do his best, which makes the hosts freak out. For the Satet Bond Cup, the prize is 1,000 for the winning team. As mentioned earlier, Yangpo will be the commentator, so Sweeback quickly calls Team 1 to meet them, dressed in uniform. Everyone is excited, and Yangpo knows this lineup is stacked. However, Aegis could totally become a celebrity, and Kanai is about to be signed by a pro team. But here's the surprise. The main character, who is Master Rank, is also on the team. However, he's the one that Nam told everyone to watch out for, so he's no pushover. Finally, they hype up Spellboy, praising him for his ranked matches, which brings him to tears. Anyway, ending the first introduction, Team 2 is called up, and the first one in the spotlight is the troublemaker from before. Right in front of Do-yoon is his old friend, Xander Jeon. After all these years apart, a showdown is about to happen, and this time, the main character won't back down. But before the match begins, Neville pulls the boy aside for a chat, leaving Do-yoon feeling extremely confused and anxious. Just the sight of Xander is enough to send a shiver down his spine. Suho notices something is wrong and asks his friend if he's feeling restless. He even jokes about needing a bathroom break, since there's still time before the match. When Do-yoon stays silent, Suho urges him to spill the beans. Still dazed, the main character mentions the chat invite from Xander. Do-yoon asks for advice, knowing he'll be annoyed if he doesn't accept, but he doesn't want to have that conversation. Suho then gets extremely irritated with that jerk, sensing he's trying to get inside his friend's head before the match. The blonde guy thinks it's obvious the main character should ignore the invite, but he's not here to force his friend. But someone else is, and even from afar the same words echo. But Jury is right there, where our hero is preparing for the finals. The girl jokes that it's a crazy coincidence, and asks if he's being followed. But of course the main character says no, without a second thought. Anyway, she sits down, apologizing for the joke since she already knew he was there. But she also asks if he's playing, and warns him that someone wants to talk to him. Jury is curious if he's going to accept, and when Do-yoon says it's Xander, she asks who that is. But in a flash, she remembers the jerk who pushed her at the internet cafe. She yells asking if they're friends, but Do-yoon denies it. Then she snatches the boy's mouse to reject the request for him, which brings a smile to Suho's face. Even so, Xander sends another request, pushing the main character's anxiety through the roof. Rejection after rejection. But for some reason, he just keeps sending them, and Jury is struggling to keep up with the declines. But even after a few seconds, the guy is acting like a total stalker, as he keeps inviting the main character, and the plan is almost done. Suga freaks out. Jury, already super annoyed, declares she's going to teach the troublemaker a lesson, but she has a better plan. With a sly smile at the main character, she gestures for him to handle things himself. Still confused, she urges him to say something, but also makes it clear she'll back up his words. Heading to Xander's room, he's still trying to invite the main character. Unbelievably, the guy seems to have no idea why Do-yoon is avoiding him. But then the chat invite is accepted, and he's completely relieved. Upon entering the chat room, Xander starts by calling Do-yoon a loser, but Cyclopom responds with a middle finger emoji. And then he leaves the room, leaving Xander stunned by the bold move. Do-yoon doesn't even flinch at Xander, just blocking him like a pro. This is probably new to him, but it takes him a moment to realize it. And when he does, Xander absolutely loses it. Yuri is laughing so hard her sides hurt, since the main character got the last word. She's totally relishing the other guy's frustration. But as the match is about to start, Yuri tells Do-yoon to focus and says she'll be quiet for now. Back to the game. The blonde guy tells the main character to stop wasting time. The arena announcement begins, and luckily at the last second, the boy makes it through the portal with his teammates. Once everyone is assembled, the announcer explains, the objective is to capture the stronghold at point 1. Then the teams will fight for points A2, A3, B2, and B3, aiming for a total of 3 points. Scoring happens by capturing a crystal zone and converting it. That takes 3 seconds, and each team sees the objectives as purple. Once the first round is over, the second round starts immediately. The losing team's second point is revealed, giving the winning team a chance. The losing team will enter a defensive round near their respawn area, which will be easier. So the next rounds will continue until 5 rounds are completed, and everyone will be aiming for that crystal advantage. Basically, it's an epic 5-on-5 showdown for the first point. But from the main character's perspective, there's a twist, because even though it's a 5-on-5, for obvious reasons, Xander seems solely focused on Do-yoon. Once it's time to pick character classes, the main character chooses the normal class in the attack role. Then he picks his weapons and skills, and once everyone is ready, he's sure they're going to crush the competition. Finally, the match begins to capture the first objective point. Nam warns that capturing the objective is key and tells Suho to keep an eye on everyone. As the point man, Spellboy spots 5 enemies and transforms, getting ready for a fight. However, Kanai points out one of the 5 is missing, which puzzles Nam slightly, until he spots Nephilis sneaking up from behind, showing off some slick stealth moves. Xander's plan is probably to take out the healer from behind, but when he gets the chance, the guy just glides past Nam and goes straight for Do-yoon. Luckily, at the last second, the main character dodges a devastating takedown. Even though he's a squishy assassin, he's acting like a tank only targeting Do-yoon. But since his position is exposed, Suho is ready to jump in and help. Yangpo screams in panic as they get the first kill in just 10 seconds, and the first blood goes to Nephilis from Team 2, a legendary rank player. Squanbot explains that he used a mobility skill to sneak in, but surprisingly, instead of targeting the healer, he went for the team's DPS. Squanbot thinks he did it because for the first 30 seconds, the skills are hidden. In his opinion, since Nam is a pro player, Xander probably thought he was the DPS instead of the support. Even the audience is scratching their heads, wondering why Nam would let a master rank player be the attacker. Spellboy asks if the guy is trolling, but Jason chimes in agreeing with Squanbot. It seems having a master rank player as DPS is a solid strategy, but Suho knows for sure that the attack on Do-yoon was no mistake. Anyway, with this advantage, Team 1 starts capturing the first objective point of the match. Team 2's assassination plan completely failed, and Nephilis is already back in the fight after respawning. The commentators think he'll play it cool and wait for his teammates to respawn, but nope, that didn't happen. Spellboy is completely baffled, wondering why he's going in alone. Knowing where Nam is, the allied team surrounds the healer to keep him safe. But once again, Nam is ignored, and our main guy has to stay on his toes because, just like before, he's the target of his old friend's rage. Of course, with the numbers advantage, Xander gets swarmed by the allied team and is easily taken down for the second time. Now the commentators are going crazy because the opposing team has to wait for him to respawn. I think the only reason for this mess is that the whole team isn't gelling, but Team 1's Captain Nam isn't buying it. He shouts out, ordering a new attack. A beast girl dives down from above to attack the healer, who just barely dodges. However, she's incredibly fast and starts dishing out hits like it's nothing. Luckily for the pro player, he takes her down with a perfect shot. But then suddenly he feels something is wrong. He's blinded by a crowd control skill. And just as he starts to see again, Xander appears right in front of him with a creepy smile. With one swift move, he takes down the main character. After being taken down, Do-yoon apologizes. But Suho has his back and says they'll wait for his respawn. Meanwhile, Nam continues to support, but wonders why one enemy is missing from the team fight. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the main character respawns at the base and rushes to help. But the missing enemy sneaks up behind him and lands a vicious slash on his back. Do-yoon yells, criticizing the enemy for being in the wrong spot, instead of at mid. Suho can't believe it, and even Yangpo is being sarcastic, saying this isn't the time for that. Team 2 needs to fight fair to capture the crystal. But even as the main DPS, Nephilis is back at Team 1's base again. This attacker is the same one who tried to take down the main character earlier. Nam dismisses his earlier thoughts and realizes this is about a personal grudge. Over team chat, Do-yoon warns that he's being held up and apologizes for it. But Nam replies that they're not the only ones affected by this tactic. In fact, Nam is sure that Team 2 isn't happy about this and calls Xander a troll. This surprises the main character. So, the captain's order is for our hero to turn the tables to his advantage. Over on Team 2's side, the Beast Girl is screaming, wondering why she's going in alone. A blonde girl apologizes and yells even louder, saying she was talking to Nephilis. She's been frustrated with him ever since he pressured the Master Rank player. Meanwhile, the blonde girl starts to cry, asking if they can please work together. But the boy doesn't care until someone else calls him annoying. Xander has been obsessed with taking Do-yoon out of the game, but he's failing miserably, proving he's not cut out for this. So the one who seems to be the captain tells him to log out and just watch the team play. Everything seems to indicate the boy has forgotten the game's objective and doesn't even want to play anymore. If he wants to throw the game, that's fine with the captain, but he won't let him drag his teammates down. He calls Xander a troll just like Nam did. In her head, the blonde girl agrees but feels awkward. She asks the two to calm down. Finally, Nephilis pushes that anger aside and says he'll target the tank because they can't lose. Obviously, everyone is confused as to why he backed down so easily. But the blonde girl warns that Nephilis doesn't talk back to anyone with a higher rank than him, especially when he has a clear objective. And although the team isn't entirely behind him, they have no other choice. Back to the center of the action, the commentators are buzzing about the round nearing its end. Suho is holding his own, and the Beast Girl is going all out to get to the crystal, but he doesn't see Xander, sneaking up behind him until it's too late. Almost following, Nephilis has a trick up his sleeve as both Drake, Bayan, and the blonde girl turn to attack him, forcing him to temporarily retreat. But in the final seconds, the girl screams for Benin to help, and that player indeed rushes as fast as he can to the crystal. He touches the objective and starts capturing it, but with only 3 seconds left in the match, it's completely pointless, since he's the only one there. Then he fails to capture the point, and having lost only 1% of its health, the crystal is back to 100%. So the first round ends with a victory for Team 1. Afterwards, Spellboy and Kanai are hyped, screaming about the team's first win. In the next round, Team 2's point B2 opens up, and they have to defend it for 5 minutes. Then Nephilis chimes in on the voice chat, saying he'll be back in time. To be honest, the commentators are a bit disappointed by the lack of epic battles. Junko blames it on teamwork issues, but knows the real showdown has only just begun. Meanwhile, the viewers are scratching their heads, wondering why they're chasing kills instead of the objective. Anyway, with the first point in hand, Team 1 has the lead, and the second assault on point B2 begins. Spellboy takes the lead, and as he starts taking fire, he warns of active enemies in the rear. On the second floor, 3 enemies appear, and it looks like they're going to be a tough fight. Even Suho, who's chilling on the other side, gets hit, so it's clear Team 2 has spread out their formation, leading Nam to praise their strategy. Compared to the first floor, the second and third floors are much better for ambushes, so Nam says they have to clear them out first. He realizes that even now, Nephilis is keeping an eye on the main character. He's not taking him lightly, since the stealth skill called backstab is perfect for taking people out. When the guy suddenly vanishes, Nam warns the main character to watch his back, but what he didn't expect was where Xander would teleport to. In just a second, he's right behind him, and without wasting any time, he rushes in to attack. Then Do-yoon reacts quickly, unleashing a hail of bullets on the assassin. Finally, Sweeback praises Team 2 for focusing on the healer. Even Youngpo doesn't get why they're suddenly coordinating with each other. Anyway, it's Nam's turn to react, and after being taken down, he feels a bit embarrassed. He apologizes and suggests they should focus on taking down the enemy, possibly swapping an attack skill for a mobility one. After thinking for a moment, the main character summons a semi-automatic rifle and warns he's going to flank the right side to try and deal some damage. Suho says it'd be great if he could take someone down, and even if he can't, he can still sneak in. So the other flank is assigned to another player, and the focus shifts back to mid, where the crystal is. With Benin standing guard, our hero needs to stay on his toes. He thinks he's unseen, and starts gathering info on the enemy's positions. Then with the semi-auto he summoned, he calculates that he can take down at least one person. He aims for the player's head, since that's where the big damage is, thanks to the critical hit factor. Then after a 3-second countdown, he appears behind the guy in a flash, and before he can react, that player is eliminated from the game. By taking out one of the damage dealers, the hero signals his teammates, and they appear instantly. He knows the tank must be hiding nearby, but the moment he loses focus, he takes a hit to the gut that knocks the wind out of him, and loses a huge chunk of health, dropping his weapon. Finally, Doyoon just asks when he even showed up, but Team 2's captain is in no mood to answer. With at least 2 health bars left, the main character thinks he can still turn the tables. So aiming for the enemy's weak spot, he decides to make a move. But unfortunately, a protective barrier pops up. He keeps attacking, but grows desperate. When he realizes nothing is working, observing from a distance, Nam warns that he can't support him when things are this intense. But just as he thinks that, he gets hit in the gut once more. Then again, he thinks, who even is this guy? And still with no answer, Team 2's Captain Minho takes down Doyoon. After 2 more eliminations, Suho warns about the hero being down. But since 3 enemies are down, Nam calls him to the crystal. And while the healer is capturing the point, the blonde guy is on cover duty. Until suddenly, with a loud bang, Minho, the one who took out Doyoon, appears to finish off the rest. Unfortunately, at the same time, Kanai is also taken down. And to make matters worse, the blonde guy realizes that the 2 remaining enemy players are closing in from both sides. While waiting to respawn, the main character hears all the comms from his teammates during that critical moment, even a scream. Then when he opens his eyes, he looks determined, but his hands start to shake, and his expression doesn't look good at all. Compared to the last round, Team 2 seems much more coordinated than Team 1, since they haven't even touched the crystal yet. Knowing how to use the map advantage, Team 2 is pulling off an epic defense. Thinking back, Sweeback said, teamwork was the key to Team 1's victory in the first round, but this time the defense is on another level. With Minho acting as the human shield, rushing in seems impossible. The marksman is usually the deciding factor on defense, but his skills are changing the game, to the point where no one can take him on one-on-one. With only 60 seconds left in round 2, Nam, who knows his teammates have saved their ultimates, warns that they'll have one last chance. First, Suho needs to activate Berserk, a control skill, and trap the enemies in a specific spot. From there, with his skill, he can catch at least 2 players. Next, Doyoon's ultimate will be used, summoning a rocket with devastating power. So the best timing for this is when the players are grouped together and stunned, because if they can take down at least 2 in the fight, the strategy will be a complete success. Finally, Kanai will unleash Fire Tornado to wipe out the rest, and Spellboy will use Super, dropping to boost his stats. So everything depends on whether Suho can pull it off. But perhaps because he wasn't paying attention when the ults were mentioned, Spellboy just activates his without asking and charges into battle. Right before their eyes, the plan starts to fall apart. But there's no time to complain now. As the main character goes left, Nam yells for Suho to cover the right, so he starts prepping his ultimate. And jumping as high as he can, he faces 3 players from the enemy team. But one of them is Minho, and that guy doesn't look worried at all. Because as the blonde guy gets closer, he pins him to the wall with a brutal punch. But as if he saw it coming, Minho completely blocks the berserk skill of the blonde guy. So even though he's disappointed, Nam quickly changes the plan and warns he's going to attack with a debuff. But as soon as he says it, he hits the ground, taken out by a skill from the blonde player that puts him to sleep. Finally, he becomes a perfect target for Benin to easily take down. Then along with Kanai, the main character starts to unleash his ultimate. It coincides with the fire tornado launched at Minho, and taking the hit head-on, it shatters his armor. But the Seed team's healer uses their skill and heals everyone to full health. The commentators can't believe the level of coordination from that team. But anyway, this helps Team 2 pull off a perfect defense. At the end of the match, Spellboy apologizes and the team is understanding. But then a notification pops up saying, the crystal has been activated. Suho panics and it's clear Xander is behind this. The commentators also noticed a player was missing from the 3-on-3 fight. And with Nephilis starting the next round like this, it's what they call a backdoor attack. While Spellboy is on a roll, charging into the enemy's front line alone, Xander comments that something's off. His teammate points out that the guy's aim isn't that good either, and Team 1 seems to be completely stunned. But Nephilis calls his opponents amateurs for attacking like this, even though he did the same thing earlier. Anyway, he asks how long this special skill lasts, and learns it's only 10 seconds. Soon enough, Spellboy returns to normal. And when he returns to his senses, not only him but also Nam and Suho are taken down by the enemy, leaving the commentators in shock. With only 2 DPS left, Nephilis says he'll retreat from the back, but his teammate yells at him not to. However, they're in a 2 versus 5 situation. Even if the other 3 respawn, they won't make it in time to win this round, and that's exactly why Xander thinks it's better to save their ults for the next round, since Team 1 has no ultimates left either. The girl has no reason to argue. A few seconds later, in the area marked A2, Nephilis holds out his hand, causing a notification, warning of a restricted point, to appear. Team 2 now has an ultimate defense for this round, So when the clock ticks down to 0, using a blink skill that boosts movement speed, the third round where Team 1 must defend point A2 begins with the crystal already captured by the other team. And looking at Xander's face, he's totally thrilled about this, while the main character is not. Since it takes 5 minutes to fully activate the crystal, the audience starts to argue. Even if both teams showed up at the same time, they know Team 1 needs at least another 15 seconds. Finally back in the game, Suho charges toward Xander, pissed off and ready to push him off the crystal. But then a giant object hurtles in from behind him, and as it lands, it completely blocks his path. This wall is also a skill that holds enemies for 10 seconds. So when it shatters, the blonde guy is completely confused, because even though it's their turn to defend, it feels like they're the ones attacking. The whole scene is like a replay of the previous round, where Team 1 has basically lost its defensive point. The commentators then think it would be smarter to retreat and regroup. And the girl with the famous sister wonders if Jay is getting nervous. But to be honest, the sister points out that the real problem is Team 1's DPS, since the master-ranked player can't stand up to Minho. Anyway, the crystal capture points hit 100, and just like that, another round ends in defeat for Team 1. The players are in shock, because they had plenty of chances before this whole mess. For example, they could have placed more wards and positioned themselves to force the enemy into a head-on fight. Regardless, the third round is over, and the fourth round with Team 2 still on attack is about to begin. But with Team 1 down 2-1, the commentators think the match is already over. But not giving up, the captain asks about the defense, and Spellboy just rushes off without a word, leaving the guy completely confused. Even the audience realizes round 3 was brutal enough to crush the whole team's spirit. Spellboy is actually blaming himself for not listening to Jae-nam in the last round, but meanwhile, Suho feels bad for not using his ult on the right target, and the main character is bummed for not taking down Xander, since they were kids. Ultimately, all three of them know that if they lose this round, the match is over, and each of them is blaming themselves for this mess. So without wasting a second, Jae-nam screams at his teammates, saying they can totally win this. He asks why everyone looks so down, and tells them to get their heads in the game, because it's time to show off a perfect defense to secure the 5th round. And because the captain still hasn't lost hope, both the blonde kid and Spellboy get fired up again. But just as Suho is about to share his excitement with the main character, he notices something is very wrong. He keeps repeating that he can't win. Back at the girl's place, the famous sister asks if the protagonist's weapon is bad, but apparently it's better at close range. In that case, she suggests he should use a bigger weapon. Meanwhile, in-game, Suho is trying his best to pull the main character back to reality and starts getting stressed. Anyway, the girl doesn't know how to explain what she means, but makes it clear that it would be a giant weapon. Because of the protagonist's lack of motivation, she doesn't understand why he isn't using it, and Suho orders Do-yoon to regroup. With the stage set, it's now Team 2's turn to attack point A3. In this best of 7, whoever wins 3 rounds first wins the whole match. Unlike Team 2, which defends from high ground with a pincer strategy, it looks like Team 1 is setting up for a head-on fight. Both sides have a pro player, but Minho is like an unbreakable wall, quickly shutting down the enemy's attacks. Meanwhile, Jae-nam is proving to be an incredible and versatile support player, but it seems like he's wasting his skills. Naturally, the game situation is infuriating, because putting a master-ranked player in such a key position, the audience might as well call him a silver-ranked scrub. But even though the commentator knows that's not true based on what he's shown, he still wonders if he made a mistake. Putting those thoughts aside, Sweeback notices a player is missing from the defensive formation, and Ionpo says the same. So Sweeback starts to panic, hoping the main character isn't throwing the game. Anyway, Team 2, led by Minho, and that blonde girl, starts preparing a spell to buff the whole team. But just as she's about to finish, she gets shot right in the face. The team members are completely confused at first, so the edgy girl with silver hair starts to freak out. While Ionpo is completely taken aback, the streamer feels a wave of relief wash over him. To be honest, the main character isn't even on the front lines. He's hiding in the building behind them. And upon checking this kid's loadout, Xander realizes he's using a sniper kit. A sniper is a long-range marksman who specializes in stealth. From the enemy team's perspective, he switched rifles because he's just messing around, since he's about to lose. Thinking it was just a lucky shot, they assume it won't happen again, as long as they keep an eye out. For now, the girl decides to keep watch, but notices Do-yoon has disappeared from that building. Still trying to figure out what the main character's abilities are, she suddenly feels a cold chill run down her spine. The trigger is pulled, and even though she realized it at the last second, the main character snipes the enemy player. With 2 players eliminated from the round, Minho, who's running low on health, realizes the gravity of the situation. Quickly, Xander tells them to fall back, for now while they search for the sniper. Our hero then takes aim at his old friend, who just barely dodges a shot to the leg. Xander feels insulted that the protagonist thinks he can catch him, but Do-yoon remains calm, ultimately thinking he's not good enough once he gets close enough. He can use his approach skill. So when he teleports behind him, this would be the perfect moment to end it all. That is if Do-yoon hadn't already predicted Xander would appear there and wasn't already aiming at him. After all he knows, that guy's been an ambush expert since they were kids. Xander grinds his teeth and repeatedly calls the protagonist a failure. But then the boy's trigger is pulled, his old friend's head becoming the target. Under Do-yoon's icy gaze, Ionpo panics, and the streamer panics even more, because it's only been 15 seconds since the round started. To put it simply, the sniper psycho Pump pulled off an insane feat by taking out 3 players in 15 seconds. And he's so calm, it's like he's a completely different person than before. Then one of the audience members shouts, recalling when Nam said the main character would be the team's star, because he could show off his legendary rank account on the North American server. Back to the main character. His focus is broken when he hears that he's left the front lines. So Suho reassures him, saying that's not what he meant, and explains that now the boy is a sniper. Spellboy chimes in that snipers need to have god-tier skills, because they're the key players in a match. Suho explains that our hero's main role is a sniper, and despite issues on the Korean server, he's already adapted. However, because of the insane difficulty of this class, the blonde guy says they need to trust him, and although he initially thought he couldn't do anything, with Xander there, the hero knew he could become a sniper. So not only Nam, but all the other team members agree to trust the boy. Before returning to his position, Suho tells the main character not to be afraid, because they're with pro players. Plus, at the legendary level, Do-yoon is on the same tier, and will definitely cause some chaos. Then the main character's scope locks onto Min-ho with a grin, acknowledges Nam's solid leadership. After a few shots, the pro player's shield shatters. He then panics, realizing he's being targeted by the enemy team's sniper. Psycho Pump, who has a legendary rank on the North American server, is now receiving high praise from the commentators for his insane comeback. His performance captures the spotlight, and the audience chat box goes wild. During the showdown, Do-yoon rushes to find higher ground. But now he's the one who almost gets taken out, because on Team 2 the player, Binny, is playing the sniper role. But in his head, he thinks he needs to find a place to hide first. Anyway, Do-yoon now knows his opponent's position. He aims and fires, taking down Beanie with pinpoint accuracy from afar, eliminating her. The commentators say, someone has to close the gap to take down our hero. But that's something a sniper is supposed to prevent, and a king of this class certainly wouldn't make a mistake. After respawning, Beanie gives up the sniper role, but the girls know this will put them in a tough spot. Xander then yells that they just need to push the main character away, but the truth is he's being targeted too. So the two of them start an internal argument over being eliminated by the boy. Though even without saying anything, the captain sends a message that this is not the time to argue. With only 2 minutes left, Spellboy shouts that the main character is their pride and joy, and believes more people will want to play sniper now. Suho yells from a distance, asking what the boy's accuracy rate is, and he replies that it's 53%. Nam then gets so hyped that he can't hold back his laughter. Back to Do-yoon. He thinks Min-ho is definitely plotting something sneaky. He could totally show up as a duelist and hunt down the main character. Surprise, surprise. That's exactly what's happening. So our hero tries to keep his cool, but thanks to his insane skills, his opponent dodges and leaps right at him, almost as if he were reading his mind. In this moment, the main character tries to block out all distractions to stay focused. With that, he hits the enemy and switches to a physical attack. But surprisingly, it's his worst possible move, and he gets completely overwhelmed in the clash. The protagonist feels panic, welling up as a weapon embeds in his thigh, starting to electrocute him. Finally, with the enemy right in his face, he has no time to think, and fires his final shot in the blink of an eye. The next day at school, chaos erupts as one of the big players from yesterday shows up. A crowd of students surrounds Suho to talk about the tournament. They watched, and he thanks them for their support. Everyone says they watched because of him, and when asked, the blonde guy says he's friends with Nam now. Of course, they start talking about the player named Psycho Pump, which sends a shiver down our hero's spine. Everyone says he's a real monster, and the blonde guy casually mentions that he's become friends with him too. But the main story is about how unlucky they were at the end of the match. Then Suho tells the main character about the insane effects of getting so much attention. And on top of that, he mentions how they unluckily tripped up at the end, when they could have turned things around. Honestly, the blonde guy gets really annoyed, and at that moment, Juri, who happens to run into them, looks pretty ticked off too. When she walks away without a word, Suho is confused and asks the main character if he knows what's up. A while ago, the girl had asked how Yoon could compete in the championship, and totally busted his lie. She's been grumpy ever since, but Suho knows she's not an easy person to deal with. However, he feels a little sad, so pushing that aside, he invites the main character to form a team, which catches him by surprise. Because back in the post-match scene yesterday, Jae-nam had asked to speak privately with the main character, and ironically, he made the exact same offer Suho just did. But when Jae-nam suggested it, he said the kid would make it big, as a professional player. Though he couldn't picture himself like that, the chance to go pro was right in front of him. And from his expression, Jae-nam seemed super excited expecting a yes, but the main character refused. He didn't think he was that good at the game, let alone at communicating with people. So he bowed his head and apologized. At that moment, Jae-nam freaked out and said he didn't need to rush. So even though the main character had refused, he still asked him to just take some more time to think. Back to the present. Suho is now making the offer to team up, putting him on the spot again. The blonde guy believes they can make a team if they find 3 more players, and on the day of the first tournament, that's when they'll make their pro debut. So he asks if the kid is in, because he knows deep down he wants to go pro. And for some reason, this time the main character smiled and accepted, making his friend incredibly happy. Suho quickly remembers they need to discuss the team and pick a name. Plus, he's super excited to start looking for other members. Meanwhile, somewhere in the city inside a building, Minho is staring intently out the window. In his memory of yesterday, both of them were on the verge of being eliminated from the match due to the damage they dealt each other. Do-yoon gritted his teeth and pulled out his sniper rifle, aiming at Minho, who dodged in a flash. But with a quick flick shot and lightning fast reflexes, he locked onto his opponent's head. And before he could react, he pulled the trigger, scoring another kill. By a twist of fate, Do-yoon was also hit by a shot, leading to his swift elimination. But Minho certainly hasn't forgotten who lost. First, breaking the serious atmosphere, Sarasil shows up and says she brought snacks. She asks if her team is hungry, and one of them rushes over to see what goodies there are. A casual conversation starts, but everyone's low-key focused on Jae-nam, who's still glued to his computer. The girl even asks what's wrong with him. So they start chatting about their failed recruitment. At the moment, they only have 4 players on their team, and even with a new member, Ogon, finding good players is still tough. Honestly, Jae-nam can't stop thinking that having the main character on the team would be a major game changer. But then Sarasil reveals she heard the 2 boys he played with the other day are in his sister's class. This completely grabs his attention. Later in the day, the famous older sister hopes her brother isn't doing anything crazy, especially since she knows he can be really loud. Anyway, Suho mentions that he earned some gear, even without winning the prize money. So all they need is a computer and a monitor for the main character. Changing the subject, Do-yoon suggests inviting Spellboy to the team, and the blonde guy is totally on board. But a girl eavesdropping seems suspiciously curious. Back at the PC bang they frequent, Suho jokes that this girl really loves this game because Juri got there before them. Anyway, the girl asks to play together, and for the first time, he smiles and agrees. Plus, since she said her parents let her hang out there, the blonde guy thinks they're pretty chill, but she can't play at home because of her PC quality. And even now, she's still annoyed with the main character. Suddenly, the blonde guy's phone buzzes with his sister's number. He senses something's wrong. He guesses she's hurt and needs him to come right away. So he says they'll talk later, and Do-yoon hopes it's nothing serious. Inevitably, his eyes meet the girl's. He starts sweating, not wanting to look away, but she drops her tough act. And she calls out to him, asking if he still wants to play, since they already agreed. To clear the air, she asks about his rank. So he sees no harm in revealing. He's ranked 300 on the North American server. Juri feels humiliated, like a hyena trying to pick a fight with a lion. And Do-yoon has already hit Grandmaster on his Korean account, so she thinks if she were as good as him, she could play with Suho. Not knowing how to start the conversation, Do-yoon asks if she plays other games, and when the girl says no, he points out that Master Rank is already something to brag about. From her expression, it's clear Juri didn't expect the compliment. So she shares that she started in silver and grinded really hard. With excitement, she gushes about how much effort she put into solo queuing up the ranks, but can't talk for long without putting herself down. Yuri explains that she plays other roles too, but her favorite is healer. After all, if she heals the main character, he could totally destroy everything for her. This seems to work for both of them. At the end of that gaming session, Juri leaves the PC bang feeling proud, but she suddenly gets a picture on her phone that makes her freeze. The photo is of her from behind, of herself in that exact moment. It couldn't be any creepier. To explain this, a guy appears and says he's been stalking her social media to find out where she goes to school. Plus, he just put his hand on her shoulder while saying he warned her he'd come, but she didn't pay attention. Then, this guy smiles and casually mentions he's Bakho, the player, who was chatting with her in the lobby of a previous match. Obviously, her instinct is to shove his hand off and freak out at this creepiness. On the other hand, Bakho apologizes for scaring her, but then blames her for not answering his messages. Still shaken, Juri asks why he's doing this, but the guy blushes as if he got caught, and he reaches out to pat her, but gets flat-out rejected. Changing the subject, he mentions he hasn't eaten, and reminds her that she said she'd pay for dinner, even though she doesn't remember this. He keeps rambling, this time about how she looks cuter than her pictures. Juri then just gets more and more uncomfortable, until he grabs her hand, crossing all boundaries. The stalker uses force to get the dinner he craves, and unfortunately realizing she's not strong enough to get away, Juri starts to cry. Quickly before things get worse, a light at the end of the tunnel appears for the girl. Do-yoon shouts without hesitation, demanding the guy take his hands off her. He introduces himself as a precious friend, but feeling that strong grip, Bakho takes a step back. The hero quickly asks who this guy is, and explains he came to return the lip gloss she forgot. The two exchange info, while the creep just stands there staring at the two students. So before anything worse happens, the girl grabs the main character's hand and pulls him into a run, leaving the frustrated stalker in the middle of the street. After a frantic run, the girl explains that running away was for the best, as this isn't the first time. At least this time she managed to record the whole thing. But realizing that creeps don't understand how illegal their actions are, Juri has taken precautions. She explains that there have been times when a few shady guys liked her. But even after all that, she still refuses to let the hero walk her home. Finally, she admits she was just scared and thanks him, thinking she was partly to blame too. The next day at school, Suho asks if his friend is free on Saturday. The main character is free as usual, so Suho reveals that's when they'll meet Spellboy. Since the guy's voice doesn't match his appearance, the main character is very curious to see how it'll go. Anyway, Suho mentions that Kanai will be there too, even though he already has a team and Do-yoon is also curious. The plan is to grab something to eat and chat, while gaming a bit. Then Juri shows up inviting herself along. She overheard the two of them talking about forming a professional team, and acting super cute, she says she'll definitely play. But Suho makes it clear the requirement is at least Grandmaster rank. Juri tries to say she's really close, but that doesn't convince anyone. So she pivots and asks for the manager position. To be honest, they really do need a manager to handle the team's tasks and recordings. So Suho says he'll think about it, but warns that he has to go see his sister again because of what happened the other day. After Suho leaves, Do-yoon comes back feeling like something's off and sees Juri looking super pissed. When asked about the stalker from the other day, the girl says she blocked him, but Do-yoon isn't satisfied with that. Clearly, she's worried and starts to say something. But just then, Suho runs back screaming the hero's name. While Juri thinks he's jealous, Do-yoon is in a full-blown panic. He grabs Do-yoon's shoulders and starts apologizing nonstop. But Suho explains that Do-yoon isn't the problem. It's the gaming community. In a forum called 10 Reasons Why, Psycho Bomb is a hacker. An internet troll has been publicly spreading hate, claiming he got a headshot after a 180-degree flick. Gradually, what's becoming fact in the community has reached his friend's ears, but Do-yoon still can't understand what they mean, probably because he's so innocent. The girl doesn't get what this so-called hack is. She asks if it's like what nerds do when they hack computers. Then the blonde guy explains that what's being talked about is an aim assist program for players, and basically they do all the work for him, because with just one click, 100% accuracy is guaranteed. Again, with pure innocence. The girl gets excited about trying it too. However, the blonde guy makes sure to explain the rules about cheating in games. Finally, Juri gets the picture and asks if the main character got caught, which he obviously denies. Suho even asks if she's kidding, because he's certain that the MC is the definition of a player who gets accused. Do-yoon starts scrolling through those nasty messages on his phone, but the one who gets angry is the blonde guy, fed up with other people's jealousy, and he says he'll handle this for the team's honor. With the self-proclaimed drama queen, Juri insists that rash decisions will only make things worse, and it's better for the insider to explain it himself. But it's only natural for him to be worried about Do-yoon's situation. Is only natural. Back to the matter at hand. Suho first asks if his friend is okay. He says he's not too worried, but a little embarrassed they're talking about him. However, there's nothing to stress about since he didn't use hacks. Still, the blonde guy thinks this could affect the others, like Swibak or the whole team. Then the main character thinks it's crazy that so many people are talking about him. Suddenly, he spots something and nudges the blonde guy to look with him. Do-yoon's hand trembles as he grips his phone, and it clicks for him when one of the comments about hacking looks like it's from Juri. Not long after, in a private room, a very serious-looking person connects with the two boys. The person asks directly if the rumors say that the main character isn't using anything. The blonde guy chimes in saying that Do-yoon is just naturally talented. In that moment, this person gives off a dark aura, making the two boys feel quite uneasy, but then reveals himself to be Swibak. The streamer says this is a golden opportunity, which totally stuns the two boys. Since yesterday, the rumors about the main character using hacks have been spreading everywhere. In the recorded live stream, after watching it over and over, everyone agreed there was cheating. But with that consensus, a whole community of commentators joined in. So Swibak decided to help the main character clear things up. To do that, they needed to go to his studio. But since the main character was still confused, Swibak asked if he wanted to set the record straight, or not. Suho cut in for him, saying they needed to nip this rumor in the bud. And how was he going to do that? By showing he can play without hacks, obviously. For the streamer, the main character's gameplay would speak for itself, and to the blonde guy's excitement, he got to join in too. Still, our main character was stressing out, saying he really couldn't do it. At first, his friends were curious what he meant, but Do-yoon just yelled that he wasn't going to explain anything, and left the lobby, leaving the streamer feeling like he'd messed everything up, and the blonde guy unable to explain anything. That night at home before bed, the main character thought he needed to explain somehow, but he couldn't, and when he picked up his phone, he saw a message. Swibak said he didn't have to come, if he didn't want to, but stressed that he couldn't let this slide. Do-yoon, on the other hand, thought it was better to ignore it, doubting it would do any good, and was more worried about Jury. But when he closed his eyes, the words about being a hacker echoed in his head. All the harsh comments calling the main character a loser and flaming him felt too real, and the anxiety in his chest was so great that sleeping became difficult. Unfortunately, the next day his assumption was completely wrong, because as he walked through the hallways, everyone was buzzing about the hacking rumors. Some said guys like him should be expelled, while others just laughed and called him a fraud for being treated like a big shot by Jae-nam. So he kept showing up, and for Do-yoon, that definitely wasn't any better than proving himself on a live stream. On the way home, the other player's sister wondered about what she was hearing. Apparently, Sarah wanted her to spy on the main character for intel, and since the girl acted annoyed, it was said her allowance would be cut if she didn't. So she had no choice but to follow her sister's orders. In the background, Yuri walked with a tired look, thinking the weekend was still so far away, until she bumped into Suho. Of course, she tried her best to hide that exhausted look and greeted the blonde guy as cheerfully as she could. So, Yuri asks if he wants to go to the movies on Saturday, but as usual he declines, saying he already has plans. In that case, she asks if he's free on Sunday. But Suho says there are no movies he wants to see and he can't play games because his sister is sick. Yuri is annoyed by the rejection, but reminds him she has something she needs to ask. He mentions he wants to know something too, but the girl brushes it off and calls Do-yoon over, changing the subject. This makes the main character realize he's being used as a third wheel and starts feeling anxious. Suho is worried about the main character's condition, so he mentions that he hasn't been able to get proper rest. With all these problems, the blonde guy doesn't even know where to begin. In freshman class 6, a few students are venting about a griefer in a match they played. But what everyone's really talking about is the queen of CZ Bond, who's probably at this school. A girl asks who that is, and the boy reveals that it's Jury, the pretty girl in class, because both her name and the school came up in the blog's data. The question is why she's being targeted again, but apparently, it's for honeypotting someone to boost her rank. The message left for Queen Bee, or Flower Jury, her nickname, exposed her first quick match with this guy. They got on voice chat and started gaming together, and as time went on, they got super close. He was master rank while Jury was in silver, always talking about how much she wanted to rank up. So being smitten, the guy helped her grind until she hit master 2. Then they planned to meet up to celebrate, but right before, Jury blocked him on every social media and ghosted him. A while later, the guy found her, but was surprised to see she already had a boyfriend. And to keep new victims from getting scammed, her ID was leaked. Naturally, this drama caused serious outrage over Jury's cold attitude towards the guy. Despite having a cute face, the whole school pretty much agreed that she's not a good person. So when a student named Jemina walked into class, they quickly pulled her aside. They recounted the whole story, which shocked her, especially when she realized Queen Bee was the Jury Yoon she knew. Since Jemina went to elementary school with her, they asked her about Jury's personality. Still a bit hesitant, she apologized and said that talking bad about someone when they're not around isn't cool. With Suho always lurking nearby, the students thought he might be the next target. And even though Jemina insisted that Jury wouldn't do anything shady, everyone was already convinced. Anyway, when she turned away, that sad look on her face was completely gone. because without even taking a side, she had planted serious doubt in her classmates' minds. Later, Suho mentions they have to find Spellboy first because he's going to be late. The main character understands, and from his expression, it's clear he's still feeling the pressure from the comments. Anyway, they were waiting for Spellboy to show up, until a surprise sticker message popped up. Suho says he's going to the restroom, leaving the main character alone to greet the new guy. After a few more seconds, a message vibrates on his phone, saying he's arrived. Do-yoon looks around trying to find Spellboy. He could be the guy with the beard on the right, or the Asian dude on the left, or maybe he just walked by. So Do-yoon thinks he should do something to stand out. But while he's lost in thought, someone asks if he's Aegis or Psycho Bomb. Turns out the incredibly handsome guy in front of him is the player known as Spellboy. The main character almost faints from the shock. In fact, before he can even answer, and hearing them call each other by those weird names made some people passing by laugh. They're not wrong since those are their in-game identities, but changing the subject, Do-yoon really didn't expect such a calm-looking person to have such a deep voice. To be honest, he didn't expect Spellboy to be so handsome. Later, while the main course is being prepared, they mentioned that this player is 21 years old, and in college. Do-yoon can't stop thinking about how cool he is, from his looks to his voice. But then Suho asks directly why he's so much friendlier in-game than in real life. This makes Spellboy freeze. He tries to apologize, saying this is his first time meeting online friends, and started to act like he does in-game. But it felt really awkward. Honestly, the guy admitted it. He doesn't have many friends. He doesn't know how to handle this atmosphere, because in real life he has this calm personality, but in-game, he's a chatterbox with tons of friends and no fear. Anyway, they ask if he still wants to join the team, and finally the guy says yes. He wants to do his best to repay them and Swibak, who pulled him out of a lonely time. But first, he warns that he needs to approach Do-yoon to see if he really is a hacker or not. In-game, a one-on-one 10-round match is about to begin, and though the main character is a bit shy, Spellboy is no different. Even though his hands are shaking in-game, he still plays the role of a provocative trash talker. Then Suho, excited to see what will happen, declares the match has begun. Right from the start, Spellboy loads his weapon and charges in to see if his friend is really that good. But just as he's about to keep talking smack, he gets shot right in the head, cutting off all that talk and making him drop. Then Spellboy, who has played with legends in ranked matches, is faced with an insane level of skill completely new. After the match ends, the atmosphere becomes extremely tense, and the main character is in a total panic. Out of nowhere, Spellboy appears, accusing him and demanding he switch computers. Suho tries to calm everyone down, but then another guy chimes in, saying they didn't even have time to install any hacks. This guy tells Spellboy he has to recognize talent when he sees it. And of course, the boys are all incredibly confused by this guy. Suho cuts in explaining it's K9, but that just makes things even weirder. Anyway, K9 notices Spellboy is acting differently, so the blonde guy spills the tea about his shyness. Now chatting with Do-yoon, the Viker guy is super hyped about the skills he just witnessed. While the main character is still trying to process everything, he introduced himself with his real name, which makes K9 want a one-on-one match. 2. Spellboy is itching to get out of his seat, but what really confuses Do-yoon is seeing the team's tank somehow crying. K9 immediately gets worried about being judged for making his teammate cry, but Spellboy's words hit hard when he reveals that he feels terrible for not knowing why. Do-yoon was hiding his skills from everyone. At first, the main character is confused, and the others are just as lost. Suho chimes in saying he's a bit like Spellboy, kinda introverted and all that. A month ago, he couldn't even share his own thoughts, but he's made some serious progress. Spellboy suggests a handcam stream, without showing his face to solve this. But K9 scoffs, saying the people calling the main character a hacker won't believe it. However, that bad feeling still lingers with Spellboy, especially knowing how many people are flaming Swibak. But it's clear that Do-yoon is completely unaware of all that. As the one who gave the hacker rumors a platform, that streamer is getting a lot of heat. Meanwhile, Suho calls the main character the biggest victim, but Spellboy clarifies that everyone is getting flamed. And as Do-yoon tries to confirm while K9 looks down, Suho says things aren't what they seem. Anyway, about the team they're forming, Spellboy asks if it's for competing, since competitions are where they'll have to face a lot of people. So he won't join unless Do-yoon publicly retracts what he said earlier. That night, the main character starts stressing about having to appear in the competition. The thought of his friends being judged makes him sad and reflect a lot. But that thought is interrupted when an angry bark loudly nearly makes him pass out. The angry barker is just a small dog, and guess what? Its owner is Juri, who's out for a walk. Even though Rose is only 9, it's still a little nuisance. Anyway, she asks why Do-yoon isn't with Suho, and if something's bothering him. especially since he usually seems much more excited than his current gloomy face. So Do-yoon confesses that everyone is suffering because of him, but he's still afraid of being judged. Still, Yuri points out that if he leaves things as they are, they'll only get worse, which ironically is exactly what the streamer said earlier. To cheer him up, she shows him the hate she gets in the class group chat. But since the main character wasn't even invited, she had to add him first. Anyway, she quickly asks if Do-yoon thinks all the bad things said about her are true. But even though they both agree they're not, she knows no one will believe it. Yuri mentions that she's always been the center of rumors, but never did anything wrong. One day, it all started when a girl broke up with her boyfriend because he liked Yuri more, but that wasn't her fault. This time, she explains that the rumor is about Suho being the target, and the funniest part, the blonde guy has never even played a single ranked match with her. Usually, Yuri just ignores this stuff, but Suho is someone who really loves the game and dreams of going pro. So to protect his future, Yuri says she's going to make a statement, and she tells the main character to wait and see before deciding what to do. This makes him reflect even more, until the plot cuts to a screen, starting a live broadcast. When Swibak goes live, the computer installing its OS shows up. So at first the viewers are curious, and they change the subject, asking if there will be a giveaway in today's stream or not. With everything going on, the chat thinks Swibak owes them an explanation, and some start flaming, him saying the hacker streamer is about to appear. The anxious crowd is trolling as expected, until the Windows installation finishes live, and Swibak can finally flash a wide grin at his viewers. The first thing he does, when the OS is back up, is download the game, CZ Bond. Then, some start to think he got a new rig and is doing an unboxing video. But anyway, the streamer breaks the awkward silence and starts to reveal the story. Since the tournament, everyone has been buzzing about a certain player who might have used hacks right in front of the whole team. Many of them wanted an official statement, but he kept quiet to protect his privacy. But these rumors have caused drama, not just among the players but the whole community. So the accused player asked for this chance to clear up all the allegations. As they saw, the stream showed the OS installation, verifying from the start that no shady programs were installed besides the game. So Swibak declares this is the perfect time to kill those nasty rumors, wasting no time. While the player is warmly welcomed, Do-yoon remembers what Yuri said about doing the right thing. So all his haters are about to be shut down by his skills. Just like that, Psycho Bomb is invited and actually appears, while he trembles and wears a mask, making the chat go wild. Before they start, Swibak asks him to introduce himself, and the boy does, leaving everyone stunned by his youthful appearance. To clear things up, Do-yoon reveals that he's only 16 years old, and the streamer says he respects him for his courage. From the boy's tired face, it's clear the rumors have been a real nightmare, and Do-yoon confirms, trembling, saying that he's been having some horrible nightmares at night. He really wants to go home, and the viewers feel a bit of sympathy. Anyway, putting a hand on the boy's shoulder, the streamer tells the audience that Psycho Bomb suffers from panic attacks. He tries to tell him not to be nervous, which makes the boy blush, but also fired up, to show what he's got. Once asked why he changed his attitude, Do-yoon says he doesn't want to hurt anyone. So he makes it clear that he's going to prove his skills are real. And to back that up, the streamer says he'll be there for support throughout the broadcast. To prove they're broadcasting live, Swibak shows a news clip from the day. Then he asks the boy to sit at the computer, where they just installed the game. But without wasting a second, the boy steps up and silently apologizes to Suho for not acting sooner. Plus, he thanks the blonde guy for believing in his innocence. While setting up the game, a quick summary of it is shown, including his rank on the other server and his experience in Master Tier, and the fact that he was at Grandmaster level. Then Swibak quickly mentions that a ranked match is about to start. They're surprised when he finds a match, and they see there are 3 legend players on the enemy team. But the boy says he's fine, and this relaxed attitude makes the viewers curious. When he gets into the game, he asked to be the sniper and no one complained, especially since he luckily got on a team full of fans. Then with his weapon ready, he gets ready, and the enemy, Ibis, says he's excited to watch this live. Another opponent steps up because they want to test him, and Ibis reminds them to check the replay, because if he's really a hacker, this will be his downfall. When the match starts, everyone is focused on the boy who's in an open area on the other side. But Ibis identifies himself as the tank and says he'll go first, since he can take 2 hits. But the boy jumps over a building and gets a vantage point. As a sniper, he locks onto his target and in less than a millisecond, adjusts his mouse for a perfect shot. Even though he was hit, the enemy still doesn't know where it came from. And while he reloads, leaving time for another shot. This makes both Suho and Swibak beam with pride, unlike Xander, who's watching the stream with a look of disgust. After that shot, the viewer's atmosphere completely changed. Ibis can't believe he got taken down, without any hacks. When he was about to answer, he decided to check the instant replay. But this only shocked him even more, because it was clearly all pure aim, as the main character shot his head and every other part of his body. Basically, he shot in a circular pattern, which was totally worthy of the name Psychopomp. Aim assist usually follows a pattern to hit the chest or head, so you could say Do-yoon did it on purpose to show off a little. While that guy was pondering, another enemy was taken down by the main character, and a girl named Hover was totally impressed. Suho and Sweet Park were feeling that pride, but more like fans, watching their idol. Even from their homes, that vibe spread, creating a collective excitement. At first, Do-yoon seemed like a total fraud when he showed up, but now he's way cooler. Yeah, all the hate comments have been replaced with praise, from simple to incredibly flowery. Anyway, after showing off his skills, Do-yoon took off his headset and asked if that was enough. And the whole chat was like, yeah. Sweet Park chimed in and said it was more than enough. As you can see, his stats are on par with the pro players. And since they're all pros, he has a bit of an advantage. Even after proving himself, he sent an email to the game's support center, and the admins confirmed they found no history of cheating. After all, Do-yoon is just a kid who loves games, so he asked the viewers to stop spreading rumors. From his home, Spellboy couldn't hold back tears. Seeing how kind the streamer was, Jury felt proud, and no one could talk bad about him anymore. Even Do-yoon thought about Sweet Park's support and felt a warmth in his heart. In the evening, the two of them greeted each other, and Sweet Park said he'd buy Do-yoon a drink when he's older. Since the boy had mentioned using an old monitor, he also got a new one as a gift, which the streamer made sure to give him, especially since it was just collecting dust. Suddenly, a person appeared, asking what the main character was doing there. This caught the attention of both boys, especially since it was a girl they had never met before. But even though they didn't know her, that didn't stop Sweet Park from thinking she was super cute. Then, when she introduced herself as the main character's older sister, the streamer explained everything in the most jumbled way possible. This made the sister bow as well, since he had given Do-yoon a gift. The next day, the rumors shifted from hate to praise, and as everyone called his name, Do-yoon was trembling so much his friends got worried, especially since his face was so red it looked like it would explode. All these people calling his name made him nervous, but maybe in a good way. Anyway, Suho remembered that Jury had some things to take care of, but from her scary expression, it seemed everything was fine. Later, with Spellboy now on the team, the group chatted about needing 2 more players. Currently, they needed a support, but Suho didn't rule out taking that position himself. As for Do-yoon, he was obviously the main damage dealer, so they needed a second one and a solid support. And while Suho crossed Jury off the list for one of the spots, someone cheerfully appeared from behind and called out Do-yoon, saying it was nice to see him. Especially since she'd known Suho for a long time, it made sense to think Do-yoon was Psychopomp. Of course, the boys looked clueless, not understanding how this strange girl knew. As for Jury, she was more worried that this girl might like Suho. But in Do-yoon's mind, he was still shocked that someone knew his identity. And what's more, he was trying to figure out who this person could be. Jury's suspicious gaze contrasted with the girl's proud expression, her identity still unknown. When Jury got too worked up, Suho had to stop her so she wouldn't do anything crazy. The other girl found it a bit strange that everyone was acting so weird. Anyway, the main character asked who she was, and then the girl told him to guess. She hinted that they had met once in the game before. However, though he drew a blank at first, Suho asked if she was Binny, and boom, that was the right answer. The boys asked if she was a senior at their school, and when she confirmed, the girl said it was nice to meet them. A few seconds later, the main character finally put 2 and 2 together, remembering her character Binny from Team 2. Suho quickly asked how she knew the boy's identity. Then the girl explained that, since she knew the blonde guy and Xander, and they kept saying Do-yoon was a true legend, it was easy to connect the dots. To be honest, Binny said she'd known for a long time. She had seen the 2 of them at the PC Bang, chatting about bringing Spellboy onto the team. Anyway, the main character asked why she was here, and the girl replied that she just wanted to say hi. To introduce herself, she said she was Dabin Park, while Do-yoon did the same. Changing the subject, Suho nearly screamed the girl's name in a panic. He quickly asked if she already had a team for the Psionic Vagabond Cup, because if not, he wanted to invite her to join their team. After all, since she was a legendary rank player, she was surely aiming for the pro scene. But Jury was not having any of that. Back in the classroom a while later, the names of the 4 team members were scrawled on a piece of paper. To finalize it, Suho was thinking of one more person, but the biggest problem was what to name the team. Until Jury appeared at his desk, snatched the pencil, and suddenly wrote her player name under Binny's. Suho told her to erase it, but almost in tears, the girl insisted that she needed to be on the team. As she'd said before, she didn't mind just being a manager, but was extremely upset that he invited another girl. She asked why she couldn't play too. Suho didn't realize how much she wanted to join, so he explained the responsibilities of a pro player. But since she had committed to the manager role, he thought it was fine to add her name. So Suho asked if she wanted to be the group's manager. And without a moment's hesitation, Yuri jumped at the chance, launching herself at the blonde guy to thank him. And in the end, this made them both happy, though for completely different reasons. Later in a private group with only the members, everyone said hello. Spellboy started by saying he loved Doyon, so much he would only support him. Finally, Suho told them that besides not having a full roster, they also didn't have a sponsor. But he promised that he knew where to get a few sponsors, so they could compete in the first division. Back at that pro player's house, one of them in particular was feeling pretty down. Yeonam was just sad thinking that Psychopomp had joined another professional team, even after saying he wouldn't. The whole team felt for Yeonam, especially since Doyon had said he wasn't interested in going pro. Then one of them said he would offer him the position again. And time passed until late afternoon. The main character was scrolling through Suho's messages. Everyone in the group seemed really excited about the team's future and planned to play that evening. So Doyon was feeling happy that he now had a team. But just as he was getting close to home, Minho appeared and called him by his nickname. And when the main character instinctively turned around, their eyes met. Doyon didn't know this player's face, but Minho could tell he'd found the right person. However, the main character recognized something in his voice, and after seeing a similar picture on Yeonam's team, he finally connected his in-game character to his real-life appearance, realizing it was Minho. Even so, the hero still didn't know why he was here, as the other guy kept staring at the picture on his phone. Doyon quickly asked if the other boy lived nearby, but he said no, and explained he just came here to ask a favor. At that point, the natural response was to ask what it was. But what the boy didn't expect was to be invited to join Minho's team. On a psionic vagabond map with a beach vibe, pink energy gathered in the enemy's hands, and from his position, he seemed to be hunting for some victims. Binny was hiding in a corner, and beside her was Spellboy. As Doyon's main tank, he activated his true form and charged in. The DPS covered him from behind with a barrage of bullets, finally finishing with just one hit from Spellboy. However, the battle wasn't over yet, as another enemy rushed in from behind, but this one met an even worse fate, as from the top of the beach overlook, Doyon mercilessly took him down. With another victory, Suho praised the whole team, saying they were synergizing like pros. Binny praised Spellboy for being a meat shield, and even gently patted his head. This got the girl extremely hyped to continue, while Spellboy's face turned red as a tomato. He tried to say he was much older than her, but she didn't care. Changing focus, Suho didn't continue on enthusiastically, because he noticed Doyon's expression was a bit off. As his teammate, the blonde guy, was about to ask about this more distracted than usual behavior. Then the main character said sorry if he had messed up the match, promising he would do better. But Suho insisted that Doyon was doing great, and yet that didn't seem to change anything. By the way, the blonde guy recalled, Yeonam had mentioned the hero the other day, in a tone like he'd just been dumped. So after careful thought, the main character decided to spill the beans. This, of course, left his friends shocked after hearing everything. Honestly, it made total sense that Doyon was at the top of their recruitment list. And he was even more stunned when he realized something else. He shook the main character, saying he could have gone pro, but Doyon showed no signs of regret, which completely surprised Suho. Because in the end, Doyon had chosen to be on their team, and that motivated him to try his best. Though deep down, the main character still felt a bit guilty for turning down Yeonam and Minho. Flashing back to that encounter, when he was offered the chance to join the team, Doyon was incredibly confused. First, Jay had contacted him with an offer, and now Minho was also trying to recruit him. But he had made it clear he wouldn't join, which completely took the pro player by surprise. Once Doyon didn't get a response, he tried to get Minho's attention, but the guy was lost in thought, having been rejected on the spot. In the pro's mind, the main character had rejected Yeonam because it was too sudden, and he didn't know much about the pro scene. But since he had joined another team, he must have known what being a pro was like. Even so, having thrown away that chance, Minho thought he needed to use money to sweeten the deal. When asked, the main character said he only knew a little about their team. One of the things he knew was that one of their members was Yugi, a monster when it comes to agility. He knew Yugi was a new player, but adapted like a champ, keeping the team stable. And of course he knew Yeonam, who usually played support, and was a legend in many positions. Plus he was well informed about Minho's own counter and parry skills. With that said, he warned that he was ranked first on the Korean server, which the main character apparently didn't know until then. He said this to reflect their strength and reinforce the offer. Furthermore, they had their own dorms for members, and salary would be discussed. But even with all these perks, the main character's face gave Minho a different feeling. Returning to Doyun's rejection, he asked if the boy's current team was really just a group of friends. And when he confirmed, Minho scoffed at this playing for fun idea. Despite knowing how exciting it is to set big goals with friends, he said that they would never make it to the pros. At that point, certain that Doyun didn't want to go pro, Minho decided to let it go. But if his true goal was to claim the top spot, he made it clear that Doyun would regret this moment. With those harsh words, he turned and walked away, leaving the main character feeling a chill. A while later, while waiting for the elevator, Sarah found herself daydreaming about dinner. Plus, she wanted to know where Manhwa was, since she wanted to reschedule the live stream, and he had gone MIA. Just as she was thinking about him, the man himself appeared before her, apologizing and making her jump out of her skin. Minho quickly recounted where he had been, which surprised her even more. She was worried about pushing her sister to go after the main character, so she asked if he had found him, with just that scribbled drawing. But more importantly, she asked how it went, since she really wanted him on the team. Sarah was so hyped for this, but Minho said they should find someone else. And to explain why, he reassured her that even if he had accepted, it would mess up the team because he wasn't ready. The next morning, Suho looked thoughtful, and while the main character focused on his hot coffee, Binny seemed to be as well. Breaking the silence, she said she'd been thinking for a while and immediately asked why there were only 4 of them when they needed 5 for a team. For his part, Doyun was also lost in thought. So, the blonde guy said he wanted to discuss this, especially since they already had a few candidates, and he already had an idea of who to pick. Arriving at the pro players building, Yeonam asked if he had heard correctly. So Sarah was going to post a notice to find the final player for the team, and Jay started freaking out asking Minho what was wrong with him for being so calm. He wanted to know why Minho didn't just recruit Doyun, since they had already met. He was extremely curious about what had happened. But of course the other guy refused. Anyway, Minho insisted that it was better to forget about him, because they could totally build a much stronger team if they found a 5th player. Suho shared that line of thinking, and he started talking about the support player he was nominating. To explain further, the blonde guy said, Binny had probably played a few matches with him, because it was none other than the legendary support Yami. Of course she remembered him because of the nickname, and even complimented his name. Then he thought this would be a solid choice, since this person was a great player, so he agreed. As for the main character's thoughts, he thought it would be cool to play with that person, and was curious to see how Yami would play. So putting the details aside, Suho first warned that Yami lives in another city, at a school with the motto of creativity, diligence, and ethics. Students were walking through the halls. Everyone was buzzing about Psychopomp, or Reaper, as he's known, being a true god in psionic vagabond, especially Xander. He was extremely annoyed, and started kicking everything in sight. He made sure to say that Doyun wasn't that good, and called his classmates idiots. He threatened them that next time he'd show them what's up. Then he stormed off angrily, without explaining why he was so mad. Still in the hallway, Xander couldn't stop thinking about how wrong these students were. He was seething about this, because even after losing to him, people kept hyping him up. Anyway, the rage didn't last long, because he suddenly noticed some important messages on his phone. And when a call came in, he had to answer immediately. Even though he said he hated being contacted, the caller announced there was news, but Xander replied that he had already seen it. The truth is, he was also thinking about it, because after waiting tirelessly, his big chance had appeared with the recruitment notice from Yeonam's team. A while later in the game, Spellboy asked if it was true they were bringing Yami onto the team. When Suho said yes, the kid recounted that he'd played with that person a few times. Then the blonde guy thought it would be smart to get in-game right away for a tryout, so they started by bringing that strong candidate into the match. Back at school, Sarah had figured out from her sister's info why Jay was so mad at Minho. While the girl continued to chat, her sister insisted she wouldn't continue spying. But anyway, just as she hung up on Sarah, a girl rushed past, and maybe from not paying attention, she bumped into the other girl, sending her falling backward. Yumina, who had done this, stood right in front of her. But when Sarah's sister was about to complain, the other blonde girl crumpled to the ground and started groaning too. This was pretty confusing. Meanwhile, Yami was getting ready for her first tryout match, and Doyun still had a look of surprise. By the way, the player's expression suddenly changed. The main character felt a chill run down his spine, because contrary to what people said, she didn't seem very nice at all, taking an active role among her teammates. Binny said it was great to see her again, and since Yami didn't answer right away, Doyun started finding her more and more terrifying. Until suddenly, the girl greeted everyone with a sweet smile, completely upending Doyun's expectations. First, she thanked them for the invite and said that although she's a legend, she's had her ups and downs. Suho recognized her as a key player, so Yami said the same thing about Aegis. Anyway, the two of them continued to chat in a super friendly way, which made Doyun change his mind more and more. because this whole feeling reminded him of the good times with Yeonam. Back to the conversation, they agreed to play a match. But when she caught the main character's eye, she smiled in a somewhat creepy way. As the round began, the frost mist item was used. This is a crowd control effect that freezes an entire area, perfect for support Yami. However, the look in her eyes as she did, this made Spellboy tremble in fear behind Binny. And the main character too, he hid behind Suho. Anyway, when those expressions disappeared, she encouraged them kindly exactly like Yeonam would. Behind the team's main tank, Spellboy, the fighters advanced, wasting no time. A player from the other team charged in alone to take down the tank, but Spellboy stood firm, ready to take the hit, and the team rallied. Suddenly Yami, who was walking a bit behind, spotted some strange movement nearby. That was enough to raise an alarm, and she quickly warned the team. A few seconds later, she shouted for the main character to watch his left. As soon as he did, after a quick search, she spotted a piece of something, sneaky hiding behind the wall. With lightning speed and precision, Doyeon aimed and shot right at the enemy's weak spot. As the enemy fell, Yami's face lit up with excitement. She praised our hero's skills, making him blush and get flustered. Noticing Spellboy was struggling, after losing his transformation, she cast a healing spell that restored him to full strength instantly. So while she couldn't replace Yeonam, she was definitely awesome. But then, Suho started taking serious hits, and Yami just told him to fall back. Binny was aiming at an opponent up high, but she missed her shot. Instead of criticizing, Yami cheered her on, saying it was okay, and she'd get it next time. In the end, the whole team was completely won over by Yami. At the end of the match, they invited her to join the team, and she totally accepted. Suho started rambling about going pro, but then realized that wasn't even necessary. Anyway, he went off to celebrate while Yami waved goodbye to the main character. When asked about a team name, Suho jumped in with a suggestion he'd thought of. Without much thought, he threw out the name he thought was the best. Back at school, where the two girls collided in the hallway, Yumina was acting very strangely, leaving Sarah's sister utterly confused. To her, it seemed like the other girl had completely mimicked her fall and went down right after. But the crowd that showed up afterward didn't see that, so they helped her up, looking very concerned. Out of habit, the girl opened her mouth to apologize, but then Juri pulled her away. But Juri thought there was no reason to apologize, when the other girl was the one who fell. So despite acting nice, Yumina couldn't hide her annoyance. As expected, her sycophantic friends went along with the blonde girl's story. But Juri saw the whole thing and caught Yumina throwing herself into Bonnie. So she asked why the blonde girl fell too, which completely caught Yumina off guard. After a few seconds of awkward silence, while everyone was trying to piece things together, Yumina said she lost her balance, and suggested Juri should have seen that from a distance. She approached with a sweet smile, asking if the other girl was okay. But Juri made it clear that her vision was perfect. There was no problem here. Then changing the subject, Yumina said it had been a while and asked how she was doing. This surprised Juri, so much that she had to pause and look down a bit embarrassed. Embarrassed. She shook her head in confusion, indicating she didn't remember Yumina, even though they used to be classmates. But Juri really didn't seem to care much. But to be polite, she said it was nice to see her again. Finally, even the blonde girl's friends were a bit captivated by Juri's aura. Then Yumina's true feelings welled up and her rage was palpable. Anyway, Bonnie had a hard time talking when cornered. Being defended like that, she started to really admire Juri. Back in class, Juri heard about Yami, who had secured the final spot on the team. Since they wanted to practice more as a team, Suho requested a practice match. As the team's manager, Juri didn't hesitate to jump in and help. As they said their goodbyes, Suho asked when the schedule would be ready. A moment after that conversation, Juri was tapping on her phone but started to panic. She had just realized Suho asked her to do something she knew nothing about. The blonde guy had mentioned arranging a scrim, but Juri didn't know it meant a practice match. The worst part was she couldn't ask Suho because she was the manager. But just as things were getting stressful, Bonnie showed up with a gift. To explain, she said it was a thank you for the other day, which completely surprised Juri, especially since she didn't even remember helping Bonnie with anything. And of course, this made Bonnie's cheerful expression completely fall. Screaming, the girl reminded her about falling and being helped, but Juri brushed it off, and the girl said she was fine, even though her hands were all scraped up. Anyway, she noticed Juri's phone was open to a search tab and asked about the scrim. Juri panicked and yelled at her not to peek at her phone, but Bonnie was still curious if it was about Sitet Bond. This gave Juri an idea. So without wasting a second, she grabbed Bonnie's hand and practically dragged her along. As they walked, Bonnie thought she'd messed up and got super anxious when Juri started talking. But all she asked was if Bonnie knew what a scrim was, and Bonnie quickly said it was a friendly match. Suddenly, Juri's worried face lit up with excitement. Then Bonnie explained that these matches happened before real tournaments, And since searching for other terms didn't work, she suggested typing Sitet Bond Scrim into the search bar. Finally, Jury found the word scrimmage in the informal dictionary. Bonnie was like, "I've never played, but I know what it means." Without mentioning her sister's name, Jury asked how they could make this happen. To explain further, Bonnie let it slip that she was a team manager, which accidentally connected her with Do-yoon in Bonnie's mind. Anyway, Jury was serious about needing to get this sorted, so Bonnie was all in. She decided she would help at all costs. Jury asked how they'd do it, but Bonnie explained she had a friend who was also a manager, and they exchanged phone numbers. But when she got home, a harsh reality hit, shattering her hopes. Bonnie had asked her sister for help many times. She wanted to know how to arrange a practice match, but Sarah wouldn't agree, especially since last time Bonnie had hung up on her mid-sentence. About that, Bonnie tried to apologize, but remembered she had been asking for too much. Sarah thought it was strange for Bonnie to make such a specific request, since she doesn't even play the game. So Bonnie had to admit that she had a friend who was curious about it, and so Sarah agreed to help purely out of curiosity. To start, Sarah said they needed a community first. She warned that information is key and mentioned some websites on the topic. One site she emphasized was all about Sitet Bond. Bonnie was shocked to see Do-yoon as the cover story on the community page. It explained that you could schedule a practice match by sending an invite on the website, or just set it up more casually, like coordinating with friends. But Sarah insisted there was a better way to do it, and that was through an app called Discord. Of course, Bonnie knew nothing about this app and thought the name was weird. Her sister explained, it connects players through mic chat. But that just confused Bonnie more, since you can do that in-game. So Sarah explained that this app was much better and more convenient. In the chats, there are tons of discussions about practice matches, and in the dedicated chat, there are over 200 people connected. Sarah said teams looking for matches usually leave messages and are very proactive. That's why she told Bonnie to just post the date and wait for a response. Or failing that, just message directly with a player's private contact. After that was settled, Sarah said she'd invite Bonnie to the group, but not really paying attention. Bonnie said it wasn't for her, and realized it was too late. From Sarah's expression, it was clear she might have realized it was about Do-yoon. This was true, because Bonnie knew now it was about Aegis's team, her rival. Bonnie and Sarah stood to gain by having a chance to watch them play. But still unsure and trembling to keep the secret, Bonnie just asked to join the group. The next day, Jury was on cloud 9 because the problem was solved. She thanked Bonnie, who said she was ready to help more in the future. Jury asked to be taught, but acting like a double agent, Bonnie said a friend had done it for her. Finally, after thinking it over, Yuri also offered Bonnie a manager position. To make things clear, Bonnie would handle scheduling, while Jury took care of the rest. After all, asking for help would be much easier if they were both managers, and Jury was totally on board with this, because she wanted to learn from her friend. And to completely convince her, she made her face look as cute as possible, pinning Bonnie against the wall as her big, sparkling puppy dog eyes grew brighter, to the point that the other girl could only smile and agree. Later, in a wide schoolyard, the girls bumped into the guys from the team. Jury jumped in to introduce the new team manager she'd hired because of her amazing resources. Which, yes, was true, but Bonnie still trembled with nervousness as she introduced herself. Suho, a little confused, turned to the main character to get his opinion, so he asked for his take on the matter. By agreeing immediately, the blonde guy also joined in and introduced himself to Bonnie, who was completely spacing out. After giving some info about the team, the blonde guy announced that they were going pro soon. He mentioned he was one of the tanks, introduced Do-yoon as the damage dealer, and Jury as the team manager. All of this was to enter the official, competitive arena as a professional team. For a second, Bonnie was overwhelmed until she realized the weight of that goal, which led her to introduce herself as the manager, who would handle the practice matches. A few seconds after introducing herself, the girl told the main character something he apparently didn't know. But honestly, what was really on her mind was how her sister would freak out if she found out she was a manager on Do-yoon's team. Meanwhile, Suho asked for Bonnie's idea to get to know each other better in the game later, but she didn't have one. Anyway, a little later, the chip loading was done. But of the three people behind it, only Jury seemed excited. Jury asked the main character how it felt to have two cute girls walking beside him. Suho couldn't make it, while Bonnie was seriously wondering who the second cute girl was. However, they had to help the new manager set up an account. And ironically, this task fell to Do-yoon, who ended up on the wrong server, because he didn't know anything either. In the end, Jury found the whole thing hilarious, but then got serious because she had a big problem to solve. Arriving at Suho's house, he asked his sister if she needed anything else, and even though they lived in the same mansion, he told her to call since he'd be busy playing for a bit with his team. But after the blonde guy left, his sister picked up a book and started muttering complaints while reading. When everyone got in-game via invite, Yuri was the first to chat, saying she wanted to create a team skin. Next was Bonnie, whose nickname was Subin. The girl's bangs looked longer, but not only that, her entire character had been remodeled. When she met Yuri, she was blown away by how cute her character was. But Yuri said the same thing. This was the perfect time for the manager to brag about how much money she'd spent, but she didn't keep bragging, because Bonnie's weird movements were too distracting. The second manager yelled that her screen just kept spinning uncontrollably. Even though she'd watched a million times, this was the first time she'd had to take control. Then a moment later, she stopped completely dizzy. To help, Yuri told her to focus on her left hand, since this was a game with familiar keys. She advised Bonnie to put her hand on the WASD keys, and with her pinky, she should always keep it on the shift key. As for the spinning screen, Yuri explained how to change the mouse sensitivity with the scroll wheel. So after a few seconds of learning, Bonnie was showing some decent skills. Although she was still struggling, she was starting to get the hang of it. And now 2 other team members showed up. Yuri quickly asked them to join the voice chat and asked if they were playing. Benny said yes, claiming he had been carrying the team, sparking a small argument between the two. Anyway, everyone started chatting about ranked matches, which made Bonnie feel a bit left out. Then she started to get more nervous, but Do-yoon saved this day by putting a headset on for her. While Bonnie figured out how it worked, Yuri kept teasing Spellboy. That's when he finally had enough and launched a perfect flying kick. But even so, Bonnie didn't regret it because teasing the kid was too much fun. Suddenly, Benny noticed a new face, and the manager introduced herself. When Spellboy complimented the girl's voice, Benny immediately called him a creep. But this made him furious with him, since he hadn't said anything weird. Meanwhile, Yuri warned that this girl knew a lot about the game, but hadn't played much. When Spellboy couldn't wrap his head around that, Benny explained that some people are just book smart. Suho also joined the match, but as they were warming up, Yuri suggested letting Bonnie just watch. Yami wasn't there yet, but they had started scouting for the match, and Bonnie thought it was awesome, hearing everyone through the headset. As for the game mode, the main character suggested a 3-on-3 match, but Bonnie kept daydreaming about playing with a friend at home and another one far away, and she was completely thrilled by it all. At the end of the day, Bonnie poured out all her feelings even though she had only been watching. Finally, she remembered she needed to find a friend nearby, and waved goodbye with a bright smile. So the girl found her, and Yuri called Do-yoon to walk home together. But on the way, something popped into the main character's head. That caught his friend's attention. Even though he was the one who called her over, he couldn't get the words out. Unable to stand the suspense, Yuri told him to just spit it out. But just by looking at the boy's face, Yuri understood what was going on. She asked if Do-yoon had seen her screen, and since he didn't answer, it was obvious he had. As expected, there were a lot of disrespectful comments there, probably from that stalker, since they now knew her nickname. Even though they didn't know her, underclassmen and upperclassmen at school had made sarcastic remarks, like she's cute for a... And Do-yoon could feel the weight of those words on her. But Yuri insisted he shouldn't worry. They were friends after all. She actually told him not to be so down, especially when she was juggling so much as a manager. First, she had to handle the uniforms, plus marketing and motivating the team. She'd even seen managers making lemonade for their players, so getting distracted was not an option. Meanwhile, Bonnie's friend asked if she had gotten closer to Yuri after everything. Then Bonnie said that although she's hard to approach, she's super cute. About their evening, the girl recounted all the fun they had gaming at the internet cafe. It was her first time playing and it was so much fun. So even though she wanted to keep gushing, she decided to stop there. At the pro player's house, 2 members were butting heads over team strategy. Minyo stayed silent, and no matter what, Nam insisted it wasn't enough. Both Sarah and another guy who seemed to be a manager looked a bit worried. The girl mentioned that her pick would be a solid damage dealer, but Nam said mistakes wouldn't be tolerated, as they weren't looking for a player to train, but one who was already ready. Even though he was ranked first, Nam stood his ground and said no. Both Yuji and Jujin had never seen Nam act like this before, and neither had the managers. They thought it was best to talk later. So before doing anything else, they changed the subject and went to find some snacks. But Jujin asked why only they had to go. But they managed to accept without arguing. Finally, after those 2 left, the manager thought it over and called Nam for a serious talk. Nam kept thinking that the new member needed to be top tier. Then the girl asked to give the guy a chance, as he was more than qualified, saying that Reaper wasn't the only good DPS. The manager Nam-sen chimed in and said he'd heard rumors of a debut competition in China next month. So naturally, Nam started to panic, while Minho remained dead serious. Bonnie's sister warned that the news would probably be announced the next day. But even though it was a huge event, they couldn't participate because it was only for Chinese teams. However, the manager mentioned that in Korea, they were being contacted by people from all over the world. So the girl asked if Nam knew what that meant, and with a smile, he understood that there was a national tournament coming up. But for that very reason, they needed to recruit a new player, and Nam realized there was no more time to cling to his ideals. Therefore, he agreed to let the manager do whatever was necessary, and Minho just stayed silent about it. Later that day at school, Suho approached Binny with a bright smile, completely confusing her, especially when he burst into her classroom and drew all the attention from her classmates. So naturally, she stomped hard on his shin. When it was just the two of them, she asked the blonde guy what he wanted, but Suho just said he wanted to chat. He was curious about her thoughts as a legendary level player. So, Binny bluntly said she wasn't here to complain. She was a solid healer and couldn't speak ill of Do Yoon. Plus, Binny praised Spellboy, saying his rotations were crucial for flanking, but she didn't overlook his habit of sometimes ditching the team. To be honest, the only one Binny was worried about was the blonde guy himself. After all, he was supposed to be a damage dealer. Binny criticized him for having more deaths than kills, but instead of continuing to play support, she suggested he should switch to the tank class. Surprisingly, the blonde guy took this with a smile. Binny was confused, because you'd think he'd complain about the criticism. So she responded to his honesty with a light pat and some words of encouragement, and changing the subject. They both agreed that Suho had a lot to learn, despite being only a year younger. And as for the managers, Binny thought they were doing great. Even though she didn't like Jury at first, she'd come to see her value and Bonnie's as well. By some coincidence, they were all in the same year. But Suho admitted he still didn't know Bonnie that well. Anyway, Binny said she had her question about the main character's secret identity. She wanted to know how Bonnie reacted when she found out. In her head, she bet that Bonnie had fainted when she realized her classmate was famous. After sharing her thoughts, she asked again, but the blonde guy seemed to be spacing out. Binny pressed him and Suho started to sweat a little, until finally, he revealed the story she was waiting for. Afterwards, Suho thought to himself, initially believing Bonnie didn't care about the game. But then he remembered Binny had praised her for her strategic eye. So there was definitely something off, if someone who didn't care knew so much. Out of breath, a desperate player screamed into the void, but he didn't stop running for a second, because with all the healers dead, he needed to regroup with his team. At least that was the plan, until he spotted someone lurking, and it was Xander. The guy could sense something, but Xander appeared behind him too fast, and as a healer, all he could do was scream before being taken down in one hit. A second later, one of the fallen player's teammates showed up to confront Xander, so that player yelled for his friend to take him down. But despite the determination, the assassin just did what he does best, leaving two enemies arguing after being taken down by one person. Getting 2 easy kills made Xander very happy, and since he'd taken out the main healer, this round was his. But only in his head, because suddenly a notification popped up, saying 4 allies had been eliminated. Xander couldn't believe it since he'd just taken down 2 enemies by himself, but it was true. Without communication, superior skill meant nothing. So upon logging out, Xander's stress level skyrocketed, and he was about to lose it. But when he heard a noise, he had to mute his mic instantly. His mom popped in to say dinner was ready. As soon as she left, he unmuted his mic and cursed out every single teammate. This, of course, turned them against him. One teammate asked if Xander used that mouth to talk to his mother, and told him to show some respect. But Xander just cursed it even harder, and especially to the teammate who wasted his ultimate. He told him never to team up again. Xander considered his teammates to be a bunch of lowlifes, with no brain cells. Feeling hurt, they told him to get lost and taunted him for being humiliated by Do Yoon at the CKCG Cup. But Xander just retorted, telling every single one of them to shut up. Finally, his teammates were about to just end the chat. This only made Nephilis even more frustrated. However, there was one person, in particular, who just quietly observed this behavior without saying a word. Later, when they naturally lost, Xander threw his mouse in frustration. And to make matters worse, the buttons on the mouse popped off like beetle shells. A while later, in a custom room, the player Sid joined. Nephilis quickly mentioned he was in a bad mood, but she wasn't about to dwell on it. In fact, the girl got right to the point about how things were going. Then he thought for a second, and revealed that he had a super important interview tomorrow. For Sid, having an interview meant he was in. And although it wasn't a sure thing, Xander happily agreed that finally he could become a pro player. After all, when that happened, he could forget about a ton of bad stuff. Anyway, Xander said with determination that he would overcome these obstacles, and even without saying it, Sid knew he would. After that custom match, a message popped up on the boy's phone, completely surprising him, because no one was supposed to contact him at this hour. He went to check, but got a nasty surprise, as the manager, in charge of the interview, had just canceled it without any warning. On the other hand, Squid Boss was also surprised, but for a completely different reason that made no sense. However, instead of being sad or upset, he was excited, meeting the expectations of some request. Elsewhere in the city, on the way back from the market, Do-yoon asked his sister to help carry the rest of the groceries, but she didn't want to bother. However, the main character insisted that she had worked hard, but the girl replied that he had been studying hard too. Then the two of them shared a relaxing moment together. Frankly, the sister said that academics didn't really run in the family's genes, but she was glad he wasn't slacking off. Anyway, the girl asked if he was really going to keep talking to himself in his room every night, and the main character explained that he was usually playing with friends. He was worried about being a bother, but now that she knew the reason, his sister didn't mind, even though he didn't study as much, as he played games regularly throughout the night. Changing the subject, the main character talked about thinking about upgrading his PC, so the girl asks if something needs fixing, and he admits a bit shyly that there isn't. But since Do-yoon doesn't usually ask his sister for anything, the girl just asks how much it'll cost. This obviously makes him super happy. Previously, Suho helped him with an old case, plus 8 GB of RAM and a borrowed graphics card. So the main character asks for $500 for the remaining computer parts. Clearly, the sister wasn't ready for that number, especially since Do-yoon must have been very frugal by borrowing most of the components. Instantly, the girl starts thinking about the bills, so Do-yoon withdraws his request. However, since that wasn't her intention, the sister reassures him that she'll help when she gets paid and gives him some cash to eat out with his friends. Changing the subject, the sister talks about the main character's other friend, since he constantly helps out by giving him old stuff, like bringing over a monitor the other day. Anyway, she remembers it all started because of a smart, quick-witted friend, and Do-yoon guessed right, on the money, when he thought she might be talking about Xander, which makes him a bit sad. At the same time, in the city in front of a giant corporate building is the very person they were talking about, with a determined look on his face. Turning back time, Sid had complained a lot when she found out the interview was canceled, and it was her suggestion that led him to go to the company in person. In response to that message, he shared his thoughts, and they at least agreed to let him stop by. So now, the boy knocks on the door waiting for a response, and it soon comes. He then enters asking for permission. When he sees it's an employee, the man greets him. He invites the boy to sit down and asks if the place is to his liking. He also offers a drink, but since Xander refuses, he gets straight to the point. First, he asks if the young man wants to hear the details. Then Xander simply says that he doesn't understand why they canceled the interview, when suddenly, the company man admits that Nephilis actually has everything they're looking for. This makes Xander's blood boil even more, and he demands an in-game test. However, while understanding why he's angry, the employee wants to first explain the standards they look for when recruiting. He is the manager of a famous team, and he used to be a player himself. But this is something Nephilis already knew, as it's impossible not to know his name. As Xander already knew Simon Hwang, the manager says that the players of State Bond have unique roles. Some are calmer, while others are pure chaos. So assembling these 5 wild players is exactly what he's aiming for. But because of this atmosphere, he puts personality above everything else. Xander didn't expect this, but Simon says that in any team, personality is as important as skill, especially when choosing players for an esports team. Still confused, Xander quickly asks what's wrong with his personality, and the manager reveals that he still plays every day, and though he's not in his prime anymore, he's still a grandmaster, because he's played with the best. Simon has seen what his personality in State Bond is like. The truth is, he's run into a lot of drama playing with Nephilis. To avoid the awkwardness, he asks if they can end it here. Xander still won't accept it, but even if he gave him another chance, the manager is sure it would be a waste of time. Anyway, after all that, the manager asks if there are any other questions. Then with a bowed head, Xander accepts everything, but asks for a new test instead. Completely unexpected. In that case, while the second manager enters and greets everyone, another meeting is arranged. Xander bows respectfully, thanking the manager for his time, and strangely he leaves without freaking out, which Simon totally thought would happen. Anyway, the managers are chatting about some new hot scoop, Do-yoon's case. They're planning something for the scrim, and sadly, Xander overheard as he snuck out through the hallway. So once he was far from that room, he couldn't hold back his rage any longer. While everyone is in a custom match, Suho reminds them that today is their first scrim day. With a snap of his fingers, the second manager appears and announces they'll be facing a team called United Pizza Alliance. 3 of the team's members are pepperoni, super premium spicy BBQ, double cheese, and Hawaiian. Clearly, they love pizza so much they incorporated their names, and even though they have lower ranks, don't underestimate them. The first strategy is for Beanie and Do-yoon to take down the enemy wards as soon as possible. Then, the manager says the match will be split into 2 parts. And when everyone is ready, the match between United Pizza, Alliance, and Death Parado, the team's new name, begins. The main character's team moves to take positions on the field, and Do-yoon stops at a safe distance to focus. He spots 5 players right ahead, rushing toward the objective, just as the blonde guy mentioned. Then Spellboy realizes it's his time to shine and transforms, coming up against a barrier that disorients him. The enemy's strategy is to put up 2 shields, one in front of the other. And since the main character has pushed up high, he can't provide the needed support. Spellboy, who's also taking heavy damage, needs healing, and with the enemy's formation set, there's no chance to compete with their close-range damage. With 2 shields and heavy firepower, the crystal is snatched by the opponents. Seeing this, Suho tells his teammates to regroup. First, he says he'll cover Beanie and asks her to break the shields. Then the girl summons her heavy machine gun and pulls the trigger, mercilessly destroying everything in front of her. Pepperoni starts to feel the pressure, but it's too late as his shield shatters. In this situation, the enemy yells for the remaining barrier to move up, but both are broken, leaving them completely exposed. With their playstyle, they can't fight without shield support. And now that the opportunity is open, Yami activates his global pandemic ability and attacks right at the enemy team's DPS. This ability for 10 seconds will drain 5 HP points. Every 2 seconds plus the affected player will spread the same effect to all allies within 3 meters. Naturally, the DPS has no choice but to fall back. But that's exactly what needed to happen for Do-yoon to take him down without breaking a sweat. Anyway, things start to get desperate for the enemy team, and at the last second, all they can do is complain about not having a long-range DPS on their roster. Back in the custom lobby, the managers ask how the experience was. Suho says he's ready to play 3 rounds, and Juri mentions she recorded everything. Finally, Suho's big question is for Beanie, asking how she played during the match. But this time, the girl says she has no complaints, to the boys' delight. For his part, Spellboy says he felt more nervous than during ranked matches, but Beanie hyped him up, telling him to just celebrate. Anyway, a message on the blonde guy's screen catches their attention. But while it's good news about an update, it turns out the game is about to go into maintenance. But much more importantly, a player named Sweeback suddenly jumps into the match. When he joins, he greets everyone with a huge grin, and Spellboy especially is totally thrilled. So thrilled that Beanie feels a little left out, which is a bit sad. Anyway, Sweeback asks how things are going, since he knows about the scrim. But then he shifts to what he really wants to know. Suho asks if what he's heard is true, but there was an announcement, and with little hesitation, everything was laid out, making Suho even more skeptical, because apparently they're taking applications for a competition happening in Korea. And as if that wasn't enough, looking at the whole team's excited faces, Sweeback proudly reveals he'll be the main commentator at the event. Being close friends with Sweeback, both Suho and Do-yoon are super excited. Spellboy, of course, is also excited, but on a whole other level. Anyway, Sweeback says he loves the game's atmosphere and is even more hyped for the player interviews. But knowing he still needs to level up his knowledge of the game, he asks Suho and Do-yoon for a little help. Then Sweeback tells the guys to keep up the good work. So while sitting at a restaurant, Suho starts digging into his plate of food. He also asks if he can have a drink. But obviously, Sweeback isn't going to let a minor do that. Anyway, while eating, Suho notices something's off with Do-yoon. He wants to eat but is overwhelmed by all the options. This is the first time he's had dinner in such a fancy place and tried these high-end dishes. But besides that, it's also his first time with something else that he isn't ready to reveal. Flashing back to when Sweeback suddenly said he wanted to have dinner with the 2 boys. Since he'll be commentating the competition, it makes sense that he needs to know more about the game and the players. It makes sense. That's why he suggested interviewing the 2 of them over dinner, which the blonde guy was totally down for. But being a bit different, Do-yoon hesitantly said he might not be much help. However, both of his friends shouted that he doesn't know how important he is in the game. So if his friends believe he can help, he'll join. Besides the 2 of them, the streamer wanted to interview someone else. But since it wasn't confirmed, he said he'd have to call them first. Jae-nam, the first on that list, was also the first to reject Sweeback's request, mercilessly. He explained that he's busy with team stuff. And as always, Minho said nothing, so the streamer had to accept it, saying out loud that, unfortunately, he'll only be interviewing Do-yoon and Suho. Maybe it was Sweeback's strategy, because upon hearing the main character's name, his heart started pounding. As he was streaming the SVK AG Cup, the streamer said it made sense to call them first. Then Jae-nam changed his mind and yelled for Minho, but all the while, the guy was trying to remember his commitments. But Jae-nam's nagging was so intense that he eventually gave in and was convinced by his friend. Because of all this back in the present, the two of them enter the restaurant. However, before reaching their table, Jae-nam starts sweating bullets. To reassure his friend, Minho jokes that Reaper is just a high school student, but that only makes Jae-nam even more nervous. Anyway, a restaurant employee points them to their table. Jae-nam can't stop thinking that he's finally going to meet Reaper, but coincidentally Do-yoon is also feeling anxious at the table. Finally, Jae-nam introduces himself and Sweebak thanks him for coming. But surprisingly, Reaper is exactly as he imagined, but actually more familiar than he thought, like a little brother. In the main character's mind, he's also a bit shy facing the two of them in person. Anyway, with dinner on the table, Sweebak asks if the players make mistakes in competitions, and they say yes. 2 years ago in the winter, in a one-on-one situation, Jae-nam was behind an enemy, ready to take him down. As the most logical move, he pressed the keys to pull out his shotgun, but accidentally hit the wrong button and equipped a sniper rifle. And because the scope automatically turned on, it was impossible to keep up at such close range. Sweebak is shocked because they won that match, but the explanation is quite simple. Completely by luck at the last second, Jae dodged the attacks and finished the enemy with a knife at close range. This way he avoided that epic fail. From Suho's perspective, watching from the outside, it all seemed planned, and Sweebak completely agrees. Since he used to be a great DPS, but he's still curious why he ended up becoming a support. So Jae-nam says he's always aiming for innovation. He also suggests it might be due to age, which makes Sweebak feel a bit old, and that was brutal. Anyway, they chatted about the hottest topics in State Bond until they ran out of questions. That's when he thanks everyone, and Do-yoon feels bad for not contributing more. But before leaving, Jae-nam approached the boy, saying he heard about his choice to join another team. The main character then responds, feeling super excited to meet Jae-nam, until he feels his hand being crushed. Because apparently, he wasn't the most excited one there. Jae-nam has to admit he wanted him on the team, but Suho reminds him that Do-yoon already has a spot. However, Jae just can't wrap his head around it, and he leaves with a warning that they should be on guard, because they're looking for a monster player for the tournament. But with them here, Suho replies that it definitely won't be a walk in the park. Meanwhile, at Jae-nam's team management building, manager Serace is introducing herself. Finally, she also welcomes the new member joining the team. On his stream, Sweebak announces that tournament registration is closed. He asks if everyone signed up, but apparently a lot of people missed their chance. However, they know that the competition doesn't set any crazy rules. All amateur players are welcome, and the tournament has nothing to do with discrimination, preferential treatment, or hate. Whether you have a sponsor or not, experience doesn't matter. Everyone starts from the qualifiers. For sure, some might complain about this rule, but the streamer heard that the prize money is much bigger than expected. The competition will take place at internet cafes all over South Korea. So while aiming for the top spot, Sweebak warns that he'll be all over the place and wishes everyone good luck. Then Suho asks Yami if he's sure since he'll have to travel from Busan and skip school. But the team member reassures him that everything is fine, though that still doesn't ease the worries of Suho, a model student. Yami says he's not kidding about joining the team and mentions he has a cousin in Seoul. However, Suho still offers to help if needed. It would be great to have a sponsor since they're facing a lot of problems, but the blonde guy can't ask Sweebak. Anyway, the conversation has shifted to spell, boys' commitments. Then while they're talking, the managers are whispering about some things in the back. Regardless, Suho is excited about the chance to win, but isn't neglecting his studies. But when he says this, both his classmate, Binny, who is older, and Yuri herself are extremely worried. This makes it clear they had completely forgotten about exam season. A little later, Suho says goodbye to his classmates, and especially to Yuri. As mentioned, he dives into an intense training schedule in the game, but still keeps up with his studies until he nearly falls asleep while sitting. Meanwhile, the managers are also grinding, and with some fabric, they're planning a special uniform. For his part, Do-yoon can't even get a wink of sleep without getting messages on his phone, and Beanie is facing problems from skipping school, as usual. In a conversation with the event hosts, Ionpo mentions that it's crazy to have over 1,000 teams joining the qualifiers. This time the championship has no limits, and the prize is much bigger. That's why the audience has reached over 15,000 players. For the streamer, this is a double-edged sword, making it difficult to figure out where that money is coming from. Sweebak himself doesn't know where the funding comes from, but Ionpo isn't surprised to hear about a big sponsor behind all this. After all, he says he went all in on esports in South Korea. Ultimately, this is much bigger than he thought. But anyway, Sweebak has no time to waste, as he needs to kick off the event. Meanwhile, the new pro player team is getting hyped up. Suho declares he will definitely tank and support. Binny takes on the sniper role. Yami promises to do his best to heal his teammates. Spellboy ensures he'll go all out to hold the front line. And finally, Do-yoon shouts for them to just wait and see, because he's going to sweep them all. When everything is ready, Suho yells the team name Death Parado, like an epic battle cry. But then Beanie can't help but roast, that heroic speech making Suho blush. In contrast, Suho is thrilled, especially since playing at a PC bang is an extremely high-pressure environment. So he's glad that Do-yoon isn't stressed by the hecklers. But to be honest, our main character hasn't even thought about that yet. And when he finally does, he has to run to the bathroom. Do-yoon's heart is pounding faster than a viral TikTok. Even inside, he can't calm down, because guess who shows up? The last person he wanted to see. Xander walks in and Do-yoon's anxiety skyrockets. But unexpectedly, the guy just turns and slips away, leaving the main character standing there, at first trembling, then completely confused, not understanding what just happened. Anyway, other people are coming and going in the restroom, but all Do-yoon can think about is the fact that Xander might be in the tournament, frozen to the spot. The main character wonders what he should do, but since they both looked equally tired, he hopes everything is okay, while still wondering who the other guy is teaming up with. Finally, the hosts hype up the crowd for the tournament. Simon Sweeback introduces himself as the main commentator and Yeonpo as his sidekick. They're streaming live from Incheon to cover the qualifiers. But first, they're interviewing the teams. Simon is called up, but he acts like I'm so ready. Let's go, let's go. The manager announces there will be 2 matches today, but only if they win the first one. But Jae-nam isn't worried at all. They're here to win, no doubt about it. Although Simon agrees, he still tells Jae to keep his cool during the interview. But the big question is about the new rookie. Flashing back, the team is celebrating, and Xander knows he gave it his all. So no matter what happens, Simon has to respect the kid's effort. He heard Xander was the last candidate they could consider. Apparently, he finally gave in and let him join the team. Fast forward to the present. The new member approaches the team, but from what we know about Nephilis, he is definitely not that guy. Because surprise, the player called is named Jack Gang. After the selection, Sarase asked about the final candidate, thinking the manager liked him. To prove her point, she recalled Simon had flattered him a lot, but the manager brushed it off, saying it was just a few compliments. After all, there are other players who are much more talented and nice, and Nephilis can't even compare to Reaper. Back in the present, Xander's fist slams into the bathroom wall, where the main character is standing. Then he thinks he picked a hell of a time to use the restroom. Xander just keeps staring, and Do-yoon feels a chill run down his spine, and things get worse when Xander kicks the wall next to him. On top of that, Do-yoon is grabbed by the shoulder and slapped right across the face. He stands there confused, but Xander shows no remorse. Instead, the guy has a look of contempt, and the main character fears what's about to happen. Triggered by the moment, a memory from the past comes flooding back, and it's not a good one. From when Xander taunted him with malicious pranks, but Do-yoon was tied up and humiliated, so he begged for mercy, not wanting to relive that nightmare. He's trembling and desperate. Maybe that's exactly what Xander wanted to see. So Xander walks away, calling him a loser and leaving him alone, completely vulnerable. Then, Team Death Parado is called for their match against Team 50, Cent. Having never heard of them, Suho gets excited and asks if everyone is ready. But now, the main character's face is one of pure terror, and before he can process it, the match has begun. To Suho, it's obvious that Do-yoon is not okay. And from his own experience, he knows it's dangerous for his friend to be in this state. He yells to warn Binnie about what's happening, but then precise shots cut through the conversation. And suddenly, a flood of enemy takedown notifications appears. This isn't how Do-yoon normally plays, but he's in a state of extreme crisis. So maybe this time, Reaper has decided to channel his emotions. In another way, in the game, the enemy team tries to stick together to deal with the situation. But one of them hears a strange noise, and in that moment, Do-yoon was right behind him. Then with a quick trigger pull, it's all over before Suho can even blink. Even though he's popping off, the blonde guy still tells his friend to group up. But he doesn't listen and keeps rushing in to take down enemies left and right, until one of the players yells out, accusing the main character of using hacks. Suho knows this is a classic move when facing Do-yoon for the first time. But this is a prearranged match. The opponents are diamond rank, so even though he's taken down a lot, his aim is still a bit off. Honestly, he's just rushing in without any cover. Going completely ham, it's an overreaction. With another shot, the main character takes down an enemy and slides through the base. Do-yoon is playing with zero regard for the world, which is insane, because any decent opponent would have taken him down by now. Anyway, the third round ends with a victory for Team Desperado. Everyone takes off their headsets, but Do-yoon jumps up at the first to stand. Suho puts a hand on his shoulder, trying to start a conversation, but he recoils when he sees the hero's completely exhausted expression. He still doesn't get it, but an idea flashes in his mind. and as he scans the crowd, he spots the person who might be behind Do-yoon's mood. Suho is annoyed for not realizing Xander's involvement sooner, but since they have another match later, his priority is to check on his teammate. Still, he knows he has to deal with Xander, but Do-yoon thinks the opposite. In his eyes, the blonde guy is angry because he threw the match. So his response is that he can't lose again. When it's time for the 1-hour break for all teams to eat, Xander sees someone approaching him, and it's Suho, who greets him with a fake smile. But Xander just stares blankly, so the blonde guy repeats his greeting, along with a curse word. Then, Nephilis finally focuses to settle the score. Anyway, Suho cheerfully brings up Xander's recent failures, which annoys him. After declaring he doesn't care about Suho's business, he leaves a final warning not to mess with Do-yoon anymore. On the other hand, Xander is excited to settle things one-on-one. But Suho says he believes in the law of nature, called karma. That's why he mentions that he knows it might take a while, but advises him not to try too hard. Then, with a light tap on the blonde guy's hand, Xander just walks away, and in the end, Suho is curious about the team he'll face. But coincidentally, Xander goes straight to a guy who might have the answer, and who is also a total piece of trash. Back to the team's players. Spellboy is suddenly kneed from behind by Binny, falling to the ground like a kid. Anyway, when he gets up, the girl offers him some snacks. Maybe because he's annoyed with her, Spellboy refuses. Then the food is offered to Yami, who happily accepts. While chewing, the two chat about how good the snack is, but Spellboy thinks it's weird that his friend is acting so formal. Since they're in a competition, Yami thinks it's natural to be a bit more relaxed. But since they're on a break, he asks for more snacks from Binny, calling her bro. Anyway, Spellboy's gaze meets the girl's, and he quickly looks away. But instead of judging him, Binny actually thinks it's super cute. When the managers arrive at the PC Bang where the competition is happening, the place is packed. Everyone there are local players, ready to compete. Upon seeing them both, Suho greets them and asks if they found a good spot. But instead of answering, Juri just shows off the cheer poster she made for him. Meanwhile, Spellboy has never met the girls, and they've never met him either. So it's a bit awkward for Juri, and he's shorter in real life than his avatar in the game. Anyway, Juri starts massaging Binny's hands, while asking about the previous match. Both Juri and Suho are confident they'll win this match too, since it's just the qualifiers. However, the girl realizes someone is missing, and when she sees Do-yoon's state, she's shocked because he looks like a wreck. Then Juri quickly asks if Do-yoon is okay. Then Suho has to admit they ran into Xander, and instead of being scared, the girl rushes off to get revenge. Then when Yami asks who she is, Binny just says she's a certified psycho. Back to the main character's perspective. When things have settled down, he takes a moment to reflect. Binny sits next to him to ask about the previous match, but he answers short and sweet. Anyway, she starts talking to herself about game strategy, and when the main character realizes what she's typing on her phone, he's surprised to see it's a piece of fan art, featuring all the team members. This completely by chance lightens the mood a bit. Anyway, Juri startles them both by yelling that she's handled Xander. Do-yoon hears her, but is extremely stressed about the clumps of hair in her hand. Just as promised, Xander was ambushed in the bathroom and ended up bald. So even though she scared the main character, she tells him to celebrate and offers him the hair. But Do-yoon doesn't take it. Anyway, it's finally time for Desperado to face the team pet friends. So when everyone is in uniform, Suho leads the team to their seats. But then the blonde guy realizes Xander is also in the match of Burning, Ambition versus Hello World, which complicates things. But even after all that, when Do-yoon takes a deep breath, he realizes he's not shaking anymore. Luckily for the team, when the match starts, Suho checks the opponent's ranks, and they're all below master rank. And this time Spellboy tells our hero to stay behind him. On the enemy team's side, their cute avatars are all saying, "We've never faced Desperado before." So one of them suggests they should say hi, to be friends. But then that friendly atmosphere disappears. Showing this greeting isn't as chill as it seems. That group rushes forward with speed, shocking the allied team. One of them, with a cheetah avatar, locks onto Yami, who is too stunned to move. After all, with all 5 enemies right in front of him, he has no other choice. Then Yami yells at the team that he's never been targeted so intensely. But Do-yoon tells him to calm down and says he's got this, then takes down 2 of them with just a few shots. Suho also catches an opponent who's not good at dealing damage, and calls for the main character, who responds without a hint of panic, which makes him incredibly happy. Just for that, he hugs his friend and says he's proud of his progress. And for some reason, Do-yoon feels better. For sure, he's still scared of Xander, but the memories of Juri standing up for him are flooding back. From those times she protected him, just like now when she got revenge for him. All of this was aimed at helping the main character shake off that trauma, and it finally worked. Today, Desperado ends the match with a 2-0 victory and moves on to the next day. On the other hand, burning ambition is also announced as winning a perfect victory. But even though Xander is right there and Suho feels annoyed about it, at least Do-yoon feels more confident. In the messages, Sarah asks if her sister will be in the next qualifiers, and Binny answers yes. Sarah finds out about the 2 victories, and Binny also hears about her sister's team's success. Anyway, Sarah already knows Desperado won't give up easily. Finally, Ergon says they need to go now, so Sarah suggests going to a BBQ place. From Binny's perspective, she doesn't understand why. Sarah is so interested in her team, but she definitely knows her sister is scheming something. Anyway, all those worries are pushed aside to focus on the present. Juri praises Suho but also compliments Spellboy, which makes his ego skyrocket. Binny and Yami exchange compliments, and the same friendly conversation also happens with Do-yoon and Suho. So witnessing all of that makes the girl's heart race, happy that everything is going smoothly. Finally, Suho comes to thank the managers for the uniforms, but since no one else did, Binny thinks he's crossing a line. However, the blonde guy insists that the uniforms are boosting the whole team's confidence because it looks like they're a shoo-in for the quarterfinals, and for that he's very grateful. Then, happier than ever, the managers announce they'll also create a logo and a slogan. Binny feels more and more like celebrating with them. And while everyone is giving their all, she thinks they should really contribute all their support to help them win. That night, with a loud bang on the door, Sarah barges in and demands drinks for everyone. And Binny tells her to calm down and complains about her sister always pulling stunts like this. Sarah is dead tired, and she's jealous of Binny because she's out having fun with friends while she's swamped with work. So feeling a bit guilty, the girl just pours a glass for her sister, who chugged it down, immediately feeling much more refreshed. After finishing her drink, Sarah hugs her sister, crying about all the work she has to do to assemble the players and handle commitments. But she's also curious about where her sister's team will compete next. However, the message for both is the same. Return to the arena the next day. And to make things even crazier, Sinvan called and the girl totally panicked. Sarah picks up keeping her cool, but makes it clear she can't stand him. Anyway, about the match, she says that Ergen and Yugi are competing very well. They've practiced all sorts of scenarios with Minho and Jae-nam, so they're completely ready. Jack is also performing well despite the pressure of being new. In Sarah's eyes, that guy loves the attention, and the fact that Yugi is too passive is a bit suspicious. She wishes that girl would put in more effort and try harder, along with other things Binny is curious about. So, when the girl hangs up and throws her phone aside, then jumps into bed to sleep, Binny chimed in, asking to be taught specifically how to talk. Like her, she wants the secret sauce to giving excellent feedback. So Sarah saw an opportunity and asked to see Binny's practice match. Binny tries to dodge the request, but Sarah is determined, saying it's the fastest way to help the whole team. Plus, she makes it clear that Binny won't just learn to talk like her, but also learn to see the game through her eyes. After hearing her thoughts, Sarah says that Binny will get used to it and can practice. Then when Binny hesitates, Sarah reminds her that she's pretty famous, putting her sister in a tough spot. But something much more important for her team is happening, because news about Psycho, Bomb, and the championship has appeared in a group chat, and somehow, one of them has realized that Reaper is the freshman Do-yoon. But somewhere in the city, Yugi wakes up still drowsy because it's so early. Anyway, she wanders around the house looking for Ergen, but the first person she bumps into is Jack, who's doing something weird with a beauty mask. Yugi asks what he's doing up so early, and the guy says it's his skincare routine. Since they're about to meet fans, he thinks keeping his skin fresh is totally reasonable, so she doesn't question it. He even offers her some of his products, but Yugi thinks she'd rather practice. However, before doing anything else, Jack asked her to pose and take a picture for social media. So he starts posting with the caption, "We're up early for the competition." And of course, Yugi starts to think he's a bit weird. Soon enough, the photo has over 2,000 views, and Jack is thrilled about the compliments. But one comment catches his eye, talking about Psycho Bomb instead of him. He remembers this player from the Swibax streamer tournament, but him being in this tournament isn't good news. In the main character's room, he wakes up to his phone buzzing with messages. Everyone is ready. He starts feeling anxious while still in bed. Then Do-yoon goes down to the kitchen and tells his mom how worried he is. Then his mom asks what's wrong, if it's about the tournament. Since today is the big day, his sister gave him a drink that might help him calm down a bit. While sipping, he explains to his mom what this tournament means to him. Finally, Do-yoon finishes his drink and realizes he should eat something, so his sister offers to heat up some soup while he takes a shower. At the event center, everyone is buzzing about the game and the players' arrival. Since Do-yoon doesn't see Xander, he thinks he must be in a different arena. But then he feels a tap on his shoulder and almost passes out. Luckily, it's just Suho and manager Binny, but they grabbed his hand and started staring at him weirdly. Suho quickly asks if he's okay, since everyone already knows who he is. The hero tries to act calm, but when his emotions show, the two of them start to react. First, they adjust a pair of glasses and, clumsily, change a bunch of other things with a bit of force. The news that the main character is probably on the blonde guy's team has spread everywhere. So a few fans were waiting to meet him, so much so that Yami had to remind everyone they're in a tournament. But the worst part is everyone knows how shy Do-yoon is. For Suho, the main character needs to overcome this anxiety if he wants to compete well. But he's super sensitive and just ran into a really bad dude. That's why if people find out who he is, they could totally lose the match. But to dodge that problem, he's been thoroughly disguised. A few people were hunting for Do-yoon, but since they didn't recognize him, they started thinking the info was leaked. So the news that just spread was quickly shut down, and luckily Do-yoon starts to calm down. On the other hand, Sweeback isn't happy at all. Honestly, no commentator is okay after talking nonstop for hours. But finally, they got to eat a super delicious meal cooked by Yampo's mom. And surprisingly, Sweeback receives messages from everyone saying they've won their respective matches. While almost dozing off in class, Suho hears his friends call his name. The two of them ask if he's in the tournament, and when they mention his team's name, he fully wakes up. Suho, without any trouble, answers everything they want to know, saying that their team also has different members compared to the last cup. But they've heard it in the community and know that his team is a shoo-in for the quarterfinals. But for now, it's not certain yet, and Suho says as soon as it's confirmed, he'll go eat with them. So everyone starts cheering for him in a very chill way. As for the main character, they start to doubt the news, since no one spotted him at the PC Bang. They guess he just came to cheer, since Juri and Binny were also there. Later that day, Spellboy is shocked at how strong their team is, because next week is the finals. Spellboy is very stressed about going pro, but the blonde guy always supports him. Plus, he says that tomorrow they'll go to the same venue as a strong team. And since this is a big deal for the main character, he says it probably won't be Team Burning Ambition, the team Xander is currently playing for, so it's a different place. For his part, Spellboy warns that someone is spamming his phone with messages. But Suho says it's not because of his looks, it's because of the SVKP AG Cup they participated in, which Spellboy doesn't realize because he wants to believe he's a pretty boy. So Suho doesn't interrupt him, because keeping the team's morale up is most important. After all, this is their big chance to become pro players. But the rest of the team cheers along, and Do-yoon makes eye contact with Juri. He realizes she's as friendly as ever, and knowing everything he's done, he focuses on the present. In the team's next match, the main character uses a sniper rifle to aim at an enemy, who is completely off guard. And thanks to that, he lands a precise shot, completely taking down the opponent, helping Desperado get another win. The team has made it to the top 64, qualifying for the afternoon match. And for some reason, Spellboy keeps bragging about his plays to Binny. For her part, Binny praises the main character. Then he asks if she can send the drawing she made of the team to his phone. When he says drawing, she's confused and asks if it's the one she drew when she was bored. The main character confirms, so without any trouble, she sent it making Do-yoon happy, while Binny blushes. And Juri also appears asking if Binny drew something. So the main character shows her a part of the drawing, making Juri say it will bring good luck. Then Do-yoon thanks her again. But Binny has something else to say. In the next match, Team Micro Black will face this Renee. Spellboy is very excited for the chance to beat everyone. But the weird guy from before appears and recognizes Juri. The whole relaxed atmosphere vanishes, and that guy seems very happy to see her again, unlike Juri. When the next match begins, Suho quickly warns that it's almost their turn, and he asks who the guy talking to them is. But he gets no answer other than the pale expression on his friend's face. Then, the guy introduces himself as someone who played a few matches with her, and who helped her play ranked when Suho was pushing her and she didn't want to. Finally, the guy says he's surprised that Juri, his flower, has so many friends. But the blonde guy doesn't like those comments at all. Suho yells asking who that guy is, and the weirdo says it doesn't matter who he is, but who the blonde guy is. Analyzing the situation, Suho suggests that if this guy is trying to start something, he should apologize and get lost. But the guy only cares if the blonde guy is Juri's boyfriend. Actually, the guy was hoping to meet the main character, whom he'd met before. However, the guy is excited about the possibility that she's seeing them both. Not flustered at all. The other guy plays the victim of this rumor, leaving the blonde guy completely bewildered. The guy asks if he's standing before the one who posted that rumor on the block. If it's him, the weirdo wants to know what the blonde guy plans to do about it. But Suho's expression doesn't change, and somehow the other guy feels a little intimidated. But he's not alone, because Binny and two other team members chime in asking what's going on, and Spellboy is staring the other guy down. Binny is very annoyed, but the stalker is even more pissed that Juri Has so many prominent friends? Anyway, trying to stay calm, the guy asks if this is the team that girl is on. But Benny steps up to cover for her, saying, "Hold on." And when a camera flash goes off, she gets even more furious. Somehow, some girl thought taking a picture was a good idea, so Benny snatched the phone from her hand, and while the other girl tries to apologize, she deletes the photo and returns the phone, still not accepting the apology. Anyway, someone calls the stalker's name, because their match is about to start, so he has to go. As the guy leaves, the whole team buzzes about who this weird guy is, but at least Suho stays quiet, which makes Juri a bit uneasy. On the other hand, Do-yoon is curious what that guy wants from them now, but he's sure that Yuri is fine because she didn't do anything wrong. Still, the main character knows this must be really hard for her, but they'll always have her back. Someone from the organizing committee thinks the commotion was due to a fight, but even if nothing happened, if they find out, it could affect the whole team. And knowing this, Yuri decides to leave, leaving Do-yoon completely confused. A while later, the team can't find her, so they think she's already gone home. Benny doesn't know the other girl well enough to say much, but she knows Juri wouldn't leave without a reason. Everyone at school already knows about that mess, but now they have to worry about the team they're about to face. Because guess what? It's the team with that stalker Micro Black. The next match, the two teams face off, and one of the enemies is sweating bullets. After all, Juri's team has players with Legend and Grandmaster level skills. One of them is a support, but the damage dealer is at Legend level. That's a huge red flag. Still, the stalker doesn't back down, and neither do his teammates, especially if he can't win with pure skill. He still has a few dirty tricks up his sleeve. At least that's what he thinks, until his teammates get taken down. He was ready to execute his plan in the central area, but before he could, realize Spellboy lands a heavy blow on him. His health drops by half, but midair Suho attacks him again. But with even less health left, he's in bad shape. But he's not giving up yet. Then his final nightmare appears. It's Benny. She's there just to have a little chat. Going all out, the other guy tries to run, and a shot flies right past his feet. He realizes they're toying with him, and gets furious, completely cornered. The guy screams for his teammates to support him, but they say there's nothing they can do. Benny is unavoidable. A moment of silence falls, making the stalker think he's escaped. But that's only until he peeks out and gets taken down by Benny, who doesn't forget to taunt him while doing it. Since he's the main carry of Team 1, the team complains that he's not grouping up, but the stalker tells the other guy to shut up, because he's about to use his healing skill. He doesn't care if Benny is a legendary DPS or not, because he's not too bad himself with his current rank. So he yells that the girl probably climbed the ranks with a lesser role, like his friend's lackey. And this time he really got under Benny's skin. On the other side of the screen, the girl asks how good Do-yoon's aim is now, and the main character says he has about 92% accuracy. Then she asks, and he immediately agrees to take care of the remaining 4 enemies. Finally, when he answers, the stalker runs back to group up with his team. But right at his base, Benny is already waiting there, and when he turns back, the girl furiously charges at him, grabbing his collar and smashing his avatar against the wall, creating a crack. The stalker is annoyed that Benny is unarmed, but still accepts the challenge to a fist fight. In the first blow, she dodges and he clenches his fist tighter. But for some reason, he can't land a hit. On the other hand, the girl thinks it's all about the skill gap and decides to show him what a real punch is like. After getting hit again, the guy runs off to heal and regroup, sticking to his plan. But then a giant boulder falls right in front of him. This is Suho's ultimate skill. In a normal match, it shouldn't be used here. But for him, all that matters is the chance to wipe that pest off the map. The stalker gets hit with a 2.5-second stun effect, completely immobilized. But when he can move again, he has to jump up to defend himself. However, he realizes Suho is right above him using his aerial skill, locking him down for 2 seconds. And when he's pinned, he's stuck for another 3 seconds. The crowd control effect is too strong, leaving him unable to do anything. So he starts smashing his keyboard and screaming for his team to charge. But honestly, for his teammates, he's actually more useful this way, allowing them to sneak up on the healer at the crystal. But his support character, swinging their weapon, completely ruins the plan. After that match with the animal friends, Yami feels completely obsessed with playing the healer role. Most players ignore him for being a support, but he realizes he needs cover. The enemy captain says that if the whole team works together, they can totally win. But Yami isn't alone because from a safe position, Do-yoon has his eyes locked on everyone. And with just a simple trigger pull, the gunshot kicks off the massacre. After all, Do-yoon will never forget the value of his sniper rifle. But Juri worked really hard for that. At the girl's house, her mom asks why she's home, especially when she was so excited for the tournament. Then Juri reveals that a guy showed up. She says she was just called by her nickname. But since it happened in front of everyone, she's worried she'll get in trouble. and she wants to know what to do because she's sure that Suho will totally hate her. A little flashback to when Juri met Suho on the first day of high school. But while the guy was chatting with friends, she thought he was super cute. Besides being tall and handsome, he seemed very comfortable with everyone. That name Suho was also what made her heart dance. Being a decisive girl, she didn't waste any time and poked the blonde guy and introduced herself, offering to be friends. Of course, Suho did not refuse, and Juri smiled. That day, Suho was especially attractive to her. That's how Juri fell for him without even realizing it. Not long after she called the guy, but he said he was busy, which wasn't a big deal knowing he was studious, until she found out it wasn't homework. While reading his notebook, a friend asked if he played CZ Bond, and he said yes. The server was open, so the blonde guy said he'd play when he got home. However, his friend suggested they go to the PC Bang together. And even though he preferred gaming at home, Suho still agreed since it was the first day of school. This made Juri realize that both of them were really into this. By the end of the afternoon, Juri came to ask if Suho wanted to hang out, but he told her about going to the PC Bang. The weird thing is this wasn't the first time, but he kept making excuses and standing Juri up. But the next day, the reason was the same, so she couldn't be too mad. The next day, he was the one asking friends to hang out, so the girl started to get annoyed. And finally, a day later, she asked if Suho was going to the PC Bang again. Then he said no, and Juri screamed with joy. But she heard it was only because he bought a PC to game at home. From that day on, the name CZ Bond was stuck in her head. And with all her classmates talking about it, she started getting furious with that stupid game. Anyway, she was in front of the PC Bang and had plenty of time before her cram school session, so she decided to drop by and see. Inside the place was insane, as everyone was playing the same game. It was CZ Bond and Suho was playing there too. But Juri had only ever played life simulation games and a few quiz games, so she knew nothing about FPS. But at least choosing an avatar was easy to understand. And not really fitting with weapons, she chose the Superman class. When the girl got into the game, her first challenge was moving with the WASD keys, WASD. She was in the tutorial section, so she pressed the Q key as the game instructed. And boom, she unlocked the ultimate skill called reincarnation. Even though they were just NPCs saved by her magic, their thank you messages made her eyes sparkle. That's when she realized that CZ Bond could actually be a lot of fun. The next day, she ran to Suho, who completely ignored her as usual. But this time, he caught wind that she had played that game. Suddenly, the blonde guy was all ears, and Juri said she finally understood why he was so hooked on it. Suho acted like a total fanboy, asking what she played and if she wanted to play again. When she answered, the blonde guy praised her setup, saying it was on point. Juri was thrilled since she had chosen randomly, but still luckily picked the meta. Suho excitedly explained how OP the healing ability was with the reduced cooldown for Superman healers, and Juri was shocked. But the best part was, he asked for her ID so they could team up, and so they started gaming together. But Suho was way better than she expected. She'd hear him giving out commands, but they sounded like a foreign language. Even so, she still loved playing with him, especially when his angelic voice came through the voice chat. That's what made her want to practice more. But then when ranked matches became a thing, he left her behind in normal matches. He disappeared, telling her to get a rank, thinking it was some kind of challenge, and remembering everything she learned from Suho, the girl felt confident. But even if she wasn't a professional player, she knew the silver rank she got was pretty bad. However, she was okay with playing alone without Suho and kept enjoying the game. But in her matches, Juri kept getting super impatient teams. She didn't want to talk on voice chat, but felt it was weird to play without a mic. So she shouted that she couldn't heal them if they were too far away. And at that moment, the stalker heard her and immediately realized it was a girl's voice. At the end of the match, the guy flattered her, saying her healing was on a professional level, so Juri tried to be humble. Anyway, he invited her to duo queue, and since she couldn't play with Suho anymore, she thought it was a solid offer. Plus, the guy seemed nice with all the compliments he was giving her. When he found out she was in middle school, he asked when she'd be online the next day. But since she wasn't sure, the girl gave the stalker her phone number so he could contact her. And that's how Juri got tangled in a spider's web. And it wasn't a friendly one.